Good evening, everyone. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Statement of adequate notice. Under the Sunshine Law, adequate notice in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act was provided on August 13th, 2025 of this meeting's date, time, and location. The agenda was mailed to the Cranberry Press and Home News Tribune, posted on the Township Bulletin Board, mailed to those requesting personal notice, and filed with the municipal clerk. Roll call, please. Ms. Anderson is not here yet. Ms. El-Badawi?
Here.
Mr. Giddings?
Here.
Ms. Knierim?
Here.
Mr. Mildenberg?
Here.
Mr. Muselli?
Here.
Mr. Polk?
Here.
Mr. Stewart is not here, and Mr. Whitman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay. So if you'd like to read the statement of adequate notice.
I think
No.
Gina already
Gina
did
did that one. I'm
this
sorry.
now.
No, we're good. I already did it.
Oh, okay. All right, one of the things I'm going to do, my bad, on the public comments for non-agenda items, I did not catch that when the agenda went out. So we will not have any public comments for items not on the agenda, only for items on the agenda. So if you would like to make public comments at our meeting next Thursday, please feel free to join us, and we'll talk all night if you'd like. So first item on the agenda tonight is the Village Commercial Zone Extension Request. And I'd like to have Liz lead off this conversation because, we got that. I'd like to have Liz lead off this conversation on this, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. In the 2010 Comprehensive Master Plan, there was a recommendation to extend the Village Commercial Zone up to Bunker Hill to include two properties, Bunker Hill Road, along Main Street. There were two properties at the southwest corner that the master plan recommended be included in the VC zone. The homeowner of one of those properties approached the TC in the last few months saying, this was never done and we would like it to be done. And so we sort of I did some exercises of going through everything, trying to understand why it was never done. Well, at the 11th hour, literally last night, I read through meeting minutes from 2011 and found that it in fact had been done, that the site had been part of a large amendment to the land development ordinance that was adopted by the TC on November 28th, 2011. But the issue is that the zoning map has traditionally been kept by the engineer, the township engineer. The township engineer changed at the end of 2011. And so some of these changes that were adopted at the end of 2011 were not implemented in the zoning map only. But part of the ordinance that was adopted in November 2011, it says these are changes to the zoning map. There were changes, draft changes to the zoning map that were circulated to the TC that night. And there was follow-up memo from Richard Price, my predecessor and former colleague, saying, okay, all we need to do now is make that change to the map finalized. For whatever reason, that fell through the cracks. But the actual adoption of this change, and it's specifically mentioned in those meeting minutes, that was adopted officially as part of that ordinance.
Right, so I wasn't imagining that. I had thought that that was the case back in the day, that we included your property and the property on the corner up to Bunker Hill. So I guess from our standpoint, right?
So the planning board recommends back to the TC or to the zoning of, how does this
It's,
work?
it's,
How do we get it
it is truly sort of an administrative thing where
Okay.
the township engineer was made aware of this morning, and he is in the process of really just redrawing a line on the zoning map to implement what was part of that ordinance.
So there's no further action needed by the planning board?
There,
the
there
zoning
should be, because it
board,
was already
and-
passed.
Right, that's correct. There's no further actions necessary.
So we don't need to vote on anything or not on anything other than update the map and
Yep, correct.
And do we have a timeline for that?
I do know that the township administrator conveyed to the township engineer ASAP. So,
so, hold on one second. Any other questions from committee on this or from the board? I'm going to open it up to the public for comment on this. Please identify yourself and where you live. Push the button, please.
Perfect.
There we go. Glenn Johnson, 77 North Main Street. I wanted to ask that the zoning officer also be informed because I know that my realtor called town hall within the last month and was told that we were in the Village Hamlet residential zone. So in addition to updating the map, I think he needs to know so that if he gets any inquiries of that nature, you know, he's got the right information. Thank you very much.
Could you just sign in on that yellow paper just for?
Sure.
Any other comments or questions from the public on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting on this particular item. Good luck in selling your house. It's rare we do something and didn't codify it like this. It literally did fall through the cracks, and that's not something we normally do. So, but it worked out fine. So, all right, next item on the agenda is application PB 409-25 Cranberry Senior Housing Apartments LLC.
Mr. Chair, before the applicant starts,
Yes,
just wanted to state that the notice is proper and proof of publication and service is proper, and the board has jurisdiction. I will point out that the notice only asks for one variance. Mr. Del Duca will indicate that a second variance will be necessary. That really came up during the course of the review as a result of the review by Liz. And the rule is you have to state in the notice all variances except if they come up during the course of the proceeding, it's all right. So there's no problem with that. So I just
Okay.
wanted to point that out.
thank you, Jerry. Now, I don't know how you want to handle the presentation, if you want to swear in all your experts at once, so we can get them all, or one at a time,
Yeah,
or however you want to do
why
it.
don't we swear them all in at once? I always find that's a little more efficient.
Okay, I'll start with myself. I'm Damian Del Duca, and I'm the attorney for the application. Representing the applicant, I'm with the law firm of Del Duca, Lewis, and Burr. I was planning on giving some introductory comments. We can swear them first, and then I can do that, or I can give my introductory comments first.
Why
Why
don't
don't
we swear
Swear
them
them
all?
in now. Yeah.
Sure, we'll do that. My planned witnesses are Joseph Del Duca, who's the principal of the applicant in the Walters Group, Jason Shulo, our civil engineer, Arnold Boyle, our
You can stay by
architect,
your seats.
and John McCormick, our traffic engineer.
Okay.
We also have with us Ed Spitel, the Walters Group, and Fred Brock of the Walters Group, but they will not likely be testifying.
Okay. If the individuals that were indicated by Mr. Del Duca could raise their right hand.
Would you like us to do that, Sam?
No, we don't swear in members of the board. That's because the board members always tell the truth. So you don't have to worry about that. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? So sworn or affirm. Could you go around, again, just state your full name and spell your last name?
Sure. Jason Shulo, Siullo, civil engineer.
Thank you.
Joseph Del Duca, Delduca. Arnold Boyle, B-O-Y-L-E, licensed architect.
And John McCormick, MCCORMACK, with Dynamic Traffic Engineer.
Thank you.
And when you come up, if you could just state your qualifications and everything when you come up, that would be appreciated. And we don't want to swear in our board. We usually swear in our board, right?
That's pretty unusual. I never swear on the board. I really think it's completely unnecessary because the board members are not testifying.
Well, I mean, there are professionals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that would be my
professionals would be-
preference. just
Yeah.
for
And
procedure's sake.
you want to do that now?
Yeah, I'll do
That's-
that now, too.
Absolutely. If you could raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give be the truth.
I do.
So when you affirm,
I
please,
do.
please state your full name and spell your last name.
Andrew Ferranda.
David Hoder, Hoder, engineer for the board.
Elizabeth Laney, Leheny, planner for the board.
Good. Thank you. I misunderstood that.
Okay. Yeah, we always do tell the truth.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Damian Del Duca, and I'm the attorney for the applicant. I've introduced my team. Joseph Del Duca, who's the principal of the applicant, is also my brother, in case you were wondering. We'll kill that suspense right out of the gate. The applicant tonight is Cranberry Senior Apartments, LLC, which is an entity that was formed to take title to the property that we're here for tonight. And it's affiliated with a company called the Walters Group. Mr. Del Duca and his partners are principals of the Walters Group, and they develop affordable housing in New Jersey and beyond as their primary business. And Mr. Del Duca will tell you more about them and what they do. They are the applicant here this evening. The property that we're here for tonight is 1274 South River Road here in Cranberry, which is Block 5, Lot 16.01. It's a 2-acre site. There are several structures that are vacant on the site, and the property is in the recently enacted Mount Laurel 5 zoning district. The proposal is to demolish the existing structures on the property and construct 60 senior affordable apartment units. These units will be deed restricted based on age and income. This is what they call a 100% affordable community, because all 60 units will be restricted to seniors who meet the applicable income qualifications. And as you know, as a planning board, having just gone through your 4th round housing element fair share plan process, every municipality in New Jersey has a constitutional obligation established through a well-developed body of statutory and case law that provides that you and all municipalities in New Jersey have to provide a realistic opportunity for your fair share of the development of affordable housing for low and moderate income families and seniors. This will not be what we call a family community. This will be a senior community. So in this case, senior means 55 and older. The total number of units, as I mentioned, is 60. They'll all be age restricted. They'll all be income restricted. And 55 of those units will be typical senior units, and 5 of those will be special needs units. This application, unlike some of your applications before a planning board, has a bit of a history, some context, which I'd like to review, not only for the record, but also to help make sure everyone's up to date, including the members of the public that are here. This is what we consider in our line of work as a municipally sponsored community. And by that, I mean that the municipality has taken several specific steps to facilitate the construction of affordable housing on this property. Let me explain. The first step was, as I mentioned, what your obligation is as a town. That's not unique to Cranberry. Every town in the state has an obligation to provide its fair share of affordable housing. And we are just now entering what's known as the 4th round, which is the next 10 years, which is a new obligation for you as a municipality, as in all other municipalities, to provide a certain number, a realistic opportunity to develop a certain number of units in the town. And that number of units is 265. That's a number that the town has accepted. And one of the primary steps in that process was adopting part of your master plan called the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, which is a document that explains how the municipality is going to provide it's a realistic opportunity for those 265 units. And that housing element and fair share plan was adopted on June 24th, 2025. And I'm going to make that part of the record in a few minutes. And in that housing element and fair share plan, this site is specifically discussed and identified as one of the properties in Cranberry where affordable housing would be provided, and specifically 60 senior affordable housing units. That was, I'll call it step one in the municipal process that has led us here to this evening. The township also adopted ordinance 04-25-05, which authorized eminent domain to take this property. The applicant does not own this property. The municipality has adopted an ordinance in which it is stated that it intends to take this property. And I'm not the best person to tell you what the status of that is, but they have sent a letter to the property owner to attempt to voluntarily purchase the property, which is a prerequisite in eminent domain. But their ordinance states and their fair share plan states that there is an intent to take it if necessary, if they can't reach agreement with the property owner. So that occurred on May 12, 2025. The town adopted an ordinance on July 14, 2025, number 06-25-09. And in that ordinance, you created this Mount Laurel 5 zoning district, which applies to just this property. And in that zoning ordinance, you permitted the use that is proposed this evening, multifamily. You permitted the density, which is 60 units, and you established bulk standards like you do in any zoning ordinance that was tailor-made for this property. And that ordinance was adopted on July 14th. That ordinance was adopted as per your housing element and fair share plan. The next step in that process from the municipality's perspective, not including some of the court-related aspects of it, is to adopt an ordinance to make the master plan, which is a vision document, to make that a reality. And so you adopted that ordinance last month. The town then entered into a development agreement on July 15th with the applicant, which is an agreement pursuant to which the applicant has agreed to acquire the property from the municipality, and that agreement specifically identifies that this will be 60 senior affordable units. So again, 60 units has always been the number, at least since these ordinances and resolutions have been adopted. On August 25th of this year, I believe that's the date, the municipality adopted a resolution of need by resolution 08-25-109. And I apologize if I had that date wrong, but they recently adopted a resolution of need, which is a resolution from your governing body confirming that there's a need for this housing in your municipality. And that is a prerequisite for the financing for this type of community, which I'm going to talk about in a few moments. And finally, you adopted ordinance, or the governing body adopted ordinance 08-25-10, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement for a tax abatement. And that ordinance was adopted yesterday. And a tax abatement is a prerequisite for a 100% affordable community. Doesn't matter whether it's Cranberry or anywhere else in our 560 plus municipalities in the state. That's a prerequisite for a 100% deal that is funded through tax credits. Let's talk about the funding, because that's a prominent aspect of why we're here, and that's not typical for a site plan application. So 100% affordable communities in New Jersey are often funded through what's called 9% tax credits. And I'm not an expert in that. It's not really relevant to tonight as to how that works, other than how it interrelates with the municipal process. These communities like this don't get built unless they have funding, financing. And a 9% tax credit mechanism is one example of that. That is administered by a state agency called the Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, known as HMFA. And the 9% tax credit deals are typically once a year where you apply. And this year, the deadline to apply is September 2nd, next Tuesday, 1 week from today. And applicants, the developers, not the municipalities, apply to HMFA for these tax credits. In order to file that application, they have to satisfy many conditions and satisfy many, or have many prerequisites addressed. One of those many prerequisites is that the applicant has to have at least preliminary site plan approval. And we are here tonight to present to you that application to the planning board for preliminary site plan approval. There is some time pressure associated with this because if we don't get preliminary site plan approval this evening, we can't file the HMFA application. And unlike other applications that you hear where there's some delay because of something relating to an application, and you tell the applicant to come back next month, there is no next month for this application, because if we don't have an approval this evening, then we can't file the application, and we would likely have to wait, potentially wait a year. So that's a critical aspect of this. Now, that clearly benefits the applicant, but it also benefits the municipality, who is trying to satisfy its fourth round obligation to provide affordable housing. One of the reasons why we're anxious to apply this year to HMFA is that we just started our fourth round. You've heard about this as a planning board, but for those who are here that may not be familiar with it. So all the municipalities in New Jersey have a number of units that they have to try to provide, and those units in large part get built through funding provided by HMFA through this type of tax credit application process. And we think and hope that there will be less competition this year than next year, where all towns will have had a chance to bring applications forward and get them ready through collaboration with developers to apply to HMFA. So we're hoping that our odds are better this year. That benefits the municipality. The primary reason why it's a tight time constraint is the housing element and fair share plan in Cranberry and Everytown had to be adopted by June 30th of this year. And all throughout the state in June, towns like yours were adopting these housing element and fair share plans. So that wasn't adopted, I think, until June 24th. And so that didn't leave a lot of time between June 24th and September 2nd to develop plans, file applications, and do all the things that I just mentioned. So a lot's been done, and certainly our appreciation to the municipality for doing that. But that's why it's so critical for us to obtain preliminary site plan approval tonight. So let's talk about the site plan. You know, as a planning board, that the purpose of site plan review is to confirm that the applicant complies with the applicable standards in your ordinance, which in this case is primarily the new ordinance you adopted earlier this summer, but any other applicable ordinance as well. So that's what it's about. Do we comply with the ordinance provisions? It's really to a large extent, a box checking process. Do we meet the ordinance standards? And if we don't, do we have sufficient evidence to grant either a variance or waiver, depending upon what it is? In this case, we're applying for preliminary major site plan approval. You know that when you have a major site plan like this, which is a defined term in your ordinance, you need preliminary and final. Tonight is the beginning of the site plan process for us. We're here just for preliminary. And as the name suggests, it is a preliminary approval that gives the applicant certain vested rights, but the board has the right to impose reasonable conditions that have to be addressed before we get final site plan approval. We will have to come back for final site plan approval. We'll have to provide notice for final site plan approval. And in the interim, we have to meet the conditions or ask the board to carry certain conditions forward as a condition of final. So we know, we expect, and we welcome the fact that we're going to continue to work with the municipality to improve the plan, to address design concerns your professionals may have, concerns that come up this evening, and we understand that. And we look forward to working with the municipality to help improve upon the plan so that by the time we get to final, everything's tightened up, ready to go. That includes, I understand that you have an affordable housing subcommittee, and we've been made aware that we should collaborate with them, work with them to address design concerns they have, and we're happy to do that. And we understand that that would be a condition of approval, and we're used to that, and we look forward to working with them. So no issue there whatsoever. We are going to present the building design. You can see it on the easel now, which has been proposed. And but it's not a finished product, and we'll continue to take input and within reason address as many comments as we can. And that's not just relating to building design, that relates to the site plan as well. So we will be back. This is the beginning, not the end of the site plan process. As Mr. Muller mentioned, we did notice for one variance. So in your ordinance, it allows impervious coverage to be no more than 40%. We propose 50%, and that requires a bulk variance. The underlying ordinance permits 60%, and for whatever reason, this ordinance has a 40% limit. We'll present testimony from Mr. Shulo, who's our professional engineer and professional planner, and he'll explain why we need that variance. The second item did come up, Ms. Laney's letter, and it relates to section 150-43B to D of the ordinance, which relates to the amount of plantings in a parking lot area. That, and when I spoke to Mr. Muller today, I identified it as a variance, but I actually believe it's a design waiver or design exception. So that means there's a slightly different standard, a lesser standard or an easier standard to satisfy. So we do need relief under that section, but it's a waiver, not a variance.
Let me just clarify that. The difference between variances and waivers in terms of what relief is necessary is simply where they are, where the provision in the code is for which you're seeking relief. If it's in the zoning ordinance, you need a variance. If it's in site plan or subdivision ordinance, you need a waiver, also called an exception. I take it this is in the site plan ordinance?
It is.
Okay.
So it's in Article 5 of the ordinance, which is the site plan
Okay.
design standards. But we'll address that in Mr. Shulo's testimony. We have review letters from your engineer, your planner, and your traffic engineer, all dated August 20th, and we thank them for their thoroughness and their promptness. Thank you for that. We have no objection to the comments in the letters. We'll address the comments in the testimony tonight through our direct testimony. There may be a few clarifications, but subject to those clarifications, we understand that we'll have to address the comments in those letters. No issue there. Lastly, I'll identify the exhibits before I have Mr. Shulo come up. First is Exhibit A1.
Can you mark that, please?
Yeah, it's already marked.
Okay.
Well, I've handed out a copy,
Right.
and they're all pre-marked. So Exhibit A1, you have a handout. We have a copy on the board.
Mhm.
It is a site rendering prepared by Jason Shulo, our engineer planner, dated today. It's a color version of the site plan that you have in your application superimposed onto an aerial. South River Road is at the top, which is, I'll generally refer to as the north of the site, even though it's actually, I guess, the northwest. That shows the site plan. We're obviously going to spend a lot of time discussing that. Exhibit A2 is what I'll call our architectural plans, which are 6 pages in length. You have 11 by 17 copies. Those are floor plans, architectural elevations, and the last page of which is the color rendering of the building, which I had on the easel a moment ago. That's been marked as Exhibit A2. That's 6 pages long. Lastly and quickly, I'm just going to mark the ordinances and other documents that I identified in my opening. I didn't bring everyone copies of this because I didn't think it was necessary, but I did want it to be part of the record, and I gave Gina and Mr. Muller a copy as well. I'll mark as A3, the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, A4, Ordinance 04-25-05, A5 is Ordinance 06-25-09, and that's the new zoning ordinance for the Mount Laurel 5 zone. Exhibit A6 is Cranberry Township Resolution 06-25-95, which authorized the execution of the development agreement. Exhibit A7 is the development agreement between the township and Walters Cornerstone Development LLC, again dated July 15th, 2025. Exhibit A8 is Township Resolution 08-25-109, which is a resolution of need for construction of a 60-unit affordable senior housing project. And Exhibit A9, she'll be happy to hear as our final exhibit, is Ordinance 08-25-10, which authorizes the municipality to sign a financial agreement for a tax exemption for this community. So thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen. Unless you have any questions for me, I'm going to ask Mr. Shulo to step up. He's going to provide the bulk of the testimony. He is our professional engineer, professional planner.
Can I just clarify what
Sure.
you said? You said Exhibit A2 is this A2?
That is the final page of Exhibit A2. Exhibit A2 is our architectural plans. It's 6 pages long.
It's the whole thing.
It's the whole thing. Thought that would be
Here, 6
faster.
pages.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for me? All right, Mr. Shulo. And I'll sit, and you can use the microphone, Mr. Shulo, and the board. Why don't we start, Mr. Shulo, while you're getting comfortable, by reviewing your professional background.
Sure. Good evening again. Jason Shulo, SCIULL.
That's on. The mic's on. Yeah.
That's right.
Just have to talk right into it.
Yeah.
You'll have to
You
talk
can
right
hold,
into
you
that.
can hold it if you want to talk in that, whatever.
Haven't been to a concert in a while.
Yeah.
All right.
What was your promise?
Sorry again. Jason Shulo, SCIULLO. Professional engineer and planner licensed in New Jersey. I have a bachelor's of engineering from Stevens Institute of Technology. We're practicing professionally for 25 years, licensed in engineering for 20, licensed in planning for 10. Our office is located in Atlantic City. The primary focus of my experience has always been land development projects such as this for private applicants all over the state. This is the first time I've been in Cranberry, and I appreciate the opportunity. Other places in Middlesex County that I've been would be Sayreville, Edison, Woodbridge, and then everywhere else south of there. And my license is a good standing.
You're licensed as a professional engineer and a professional planner?
Yes,
And have you qualified as an expert in both fields before multiple land use boards in New Jersey?
I have.
Mr. Chairman, we'd ask that the board accept Mr. Shulo as an expert in civil engineering and professional planning.
We do.
Thank you.
Mr. Shulo, were you present during my introductory comments?
Yes,
Were they factually accurate?
yes,
Have you been responsible within your office for the preparation of the site plan and Exhibit A1, which is a rendered version of the site plan?
yes, sir.
And do you have personal knowledge of the site surrounding area?
I do.
Can you give everyone a brief overview of the existing conditions and the proposed site plan?
Sure, sure. And thank you again. So as Damien mentioned in his opening, this is Block 5, Lot 16.01. It's 1274 South River Road. The site is exactly 2 acres, and it's shown on this rendering, which is Exhibit A1 that we prepared in the yellow outline. So that's the property boundary. What you see in the brighter colors is proposed work. It's overlaid on a 2020 aerial photo available from DEP. What you see on this, the very edges of this site, the surrounding area. So from the site, going to the left on the sheet, which is generally to the south, is the intersection with 130 where South River Road breaks off. And then to the right on the sheet to the north is Security Drive. Site was recently rezoned, as Damien mentioned, to Mount Laurel 5, and before that it was highway commercial, which is what all of the zoning around this site remains. To the north, on the right side, is a hotel, and then that lot actually wraps around the back of the site. So the rear area here, that's open space, that looks to me like the stormwater feature for this existing hotel facility. To the left or the south, you'll see there's a couple single-family residential lots, commercial portion of a commercial parcel that kind of wraps around the rear of those, and then to the back here, you see the edge of the site there. That's a trailer sales facility that fronts the side street. On the opposite side of South River Road, you'll see this intersection here is a peel-off jump handle to go to 130. Directly across from us is the backside of, I think it was California Cabinets, maybe. It was a light industrial office building, so the loading dock doors face this driveway on that facility. Again, the site is exactly 2 acres. What we prepared as part of the submitted application, and Mr. Hoder and I have talked a few times, being the time frame that Damien mentioned, the preliminary status of the project goes beyond just what we're requesting from the board. We had to use a lot of publicly available information to prepare this application. So in addition to the surrounding area that you see in the aerial, a lot of what was shown on the original site plan submission was based on publicly available information. We have since prepared a site survey, detailed boundary and topographical survey after we gained site access, and the boundary is substantially similar to this, and it is, again, exactly 2 acres. As Damien mentioned, the project proposes a 60-unit building, so it's one building at 4 stories, very compact in footprint, efficient. So you'll see that in the central portion of the site here in tan color. Between that building and the South River Road is a proposed parking lot to serve that senior apartment building. In addition to accessible spaces that are in front, we have a drop-off area that's centralized on the main entrance to the building. And then lining the south side against that edge, we have electric vehicle charging station parking spaces as required by state law nowadays. The other pieces you see on this in the lighter brown, we have utility structure for New Jersey American Water's backflow preventer. We have a transformer, a generator. There's an access area here to get back to the stormwater feature, which is the strip in the rear. That's this brownish color, yellow color. That signifies a sand bottom to meet current DEP stormwater standards. You see the sidewalk that wraps around the beginning or the front portion of the site here. Minimal amount of pavement, just what's necessary to service the actual project. You'll see there's some landscape islands in the parking lot. We have landscape buffer along the frontage. There's existing vegetation that remain on both sides. The areas that are not currently vegetated or supplemented with additional plantings. And most of the area that we show along the edges that has supplemental planting is currently cleared. We are trying to minimize the amount of trees that are removed as part of this application. Again, the approvals being sought are preliminary major site plan and bulk variance relief. The site generally grades, as you see, because of the location of the stormwater feature, generally grades from South River Road, pitches back to the rear where the stormwater feature is behind the building. We maintain that existing drainage pattern and will improve existing drainage conditions in that today there's a portion that drains towards a single-family residential block. We're going to pick up all that runoff through a conveyance system that will run down and pipe back to this basin to direct everything the site produces to the rear to where it would discharge generally overland into the stormwater feature in the rear of the parcel. Off-site, will be fully compliant with stormwater rules. It'll have reduction in rates as required by regulation. It'll have an infiltration volume as required by regulation, water quality treatment through green infrastructure, and then the connotation of the current version of the stormwater rules. Generally, that means smaller features with smaller drainage areas, so you distribute the runoff around the site. In this case, it's such a small site. The drainage area limitation is 2.5 acres. The entire site's 2 acres, so we meet that standard by virtue of the size of the parcel. In addition to stormwater, we'll have public utilities. I mentioned those other features on the right side of the plane here. Everything will be underground in a future condition. Publicly available or public services are available along the frontage between sewer, water, gas and electric, telephone and cable. For trash service as a function of the facility, so you'll hear more from Mr. Del Duca. Walters has many of these senior developments all over the state. We found great success in use of indoor trash storage facilities and trash chutes in the buildings that could drop into that trash storage room, in this case, the rear corner here, and maintenance personnel on site collect that trash in that trash room, and then on pickup day, the trash truck will be able to park in this oversized space here in the front. The trash gets wheeled around from the outside to that location. So we don't show an outdoor enclosure, and that's because everything is stored inside. Damien, I don't know how much more.
Yeah, a few
about
follow-up
site.
questions. I know we're going to get into it with our traffic engineer, Mr. McCormick, but we have 2 driveways proposed, correct?
We do, and the existing condition is also 2 driveways. They're in substantially similar locations. This one on the right is almost identical in location. The one on the left side is pulled over slightly just because of geometry of the parking lot. Yes, still 2 driveways.
And South River Road is a county road, is it not?
County road.
One of the comments from Mr. Ferrando was considering making one driveway, I guess on the left or to the south, an ingress driveway, and the driveway to the north, an egress driveway, correct?
That's what I believe it said, yes.
And are we willing to consider that subject to the county's approval?
Yeah, we have no issue with that arrangement
Okay.
at all.
The ordinance requires that we preserve trees within the buffer area to the extent practicable, I think is what it says.
Yep.
Do we comply with that
We
requirement?
do. So we are minimizing the amount of disturbance based on grading needs to address existing conditions and obviously its proposed development. So the setbacks permitted from the side and the rear, all of them, in fact, on the right, we're not up against any setback line. So we're trying to leave as much as we can outside of it. There are, in this case, on the right side here, to get down to the stormwater feature, we need to have access. And on the left side here, it's already a lot of cleared area against that one neighbor. So we're going to supplement with that's to get a drainage feature to get everything from the road around the building to that rear basin. But we are minimizing the amount of clearing and maximizing the amount of trees that we can save.
Now, is it correct that there are several structures that exist on the property now?
There are.
And is it also correct that we've been aware that there's some concerns from some members of the community about preserving some of those structures?
I heard that recently, yes.
And have we evaluated that?
My understanding is we have, yes, generally not because of that comment, but prior to receipt of that comment, when we look into any of these redevelopment type sites, we want to obviously preserve as much as we can, adaptively reuse as much as we can. In this case, because of the volume of building needed to meet the ordinance generally requisite of 60 units, those existing buildings weren't going to be able to accommodate any redevelopment effort to be able to save them, to be able to use them for this proposed project.
So it was not practical or feasible to use those buildings here?
It was not.
Okay.
No.
Now, will this plan satisfy all applicable stormwater requirements?
It will.
Landscaping, I know you show some landscaping on this rendering. Is it correct, Mr. Schul, that we'll work with the board planner to augment that landscape plan and try to find ways to make it as compliant as we can?
Absolutely.
Now, one of those issues or a related issue is the parking lot landscaping that I alluded to in my opening, correct?
Yes.
Now, section 43B2D states that parking areas with a capacity of 40 spaces or more, how many do we have? 60? Okay. Are required to provide landscape dividers and islands, which in the aggregate shall cover not less than 10% of the total uncovered parking area, inclusive of all islands, aisles, and other paved areas. Is it correct that we don't meet that requirement?
As it sits now, we are at 4%, so we do not meet that standard.
And we request a waiver for that?
We do.
Why don't we meet the requirement?
In general terms, the site is small and 60 spaces to accommodate 60 units needs to fit, and this is the minimum to make it work. The addition of the landscape buffer around the outside and a couple other locations where trees can be placed outside of impact to utilities and other access features affords additional landscaping opportunity, but we can't meet that specific standard because it won't be in the parking lot. It'll be around the parking lot.
And what are we trying, what have we done and what are we willing to do to attempt to mitigate that relief?
For the landscape coverage in the parking
Yes.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that this drop-off area has paving shown up to the wings, but there's an angled area for a car to be able to pull in and pull out to get off of that travel lane. We can certainly carve off pieces of that to make some landscape opportunity. We can also add a tree in this corner. Between preliminary and final, and this, Andy, is going to be some of the conversation with you about traffic. So from electric vehicle charging perspective, the board has heard previous applications in the recent past. There's a state standard we have to follow that requires a certain percentage to be electrical vehicle charging stations. In this case, as residential, it's 15%. Now, I'm going to start shooting some numbers out. It's going to sound a little confusing, but we can have them for that 15%. They count as 2 spaces for every one that's physically constructed if it's electric vehicle charging. So in this case, at 60 spaces, we have 15% of 60. We need to have 9. We show 10. So there are a section over here that has 8. There's 12 actually. So, excuse me, we're over what's permitted or what's required. So what happens is when they count double, you can have a reduction in the total amount of parking that gets constructed by up to 10% of the total. So in this case, we could remove 6 parking spaces and still be fully compliant with ordinance standards. We don't know yet if that's going to be the board's pleasure, if that's what's desired. We're willing to work with the board to do that. That will reduce impervious coverage. It'll give us additional landscape opportunity, but we would be able to only remove 6 parking spaces while remaining fully compliant with zoning standards. We know that we need less, and our traffic engineer will talk about that based on not just what the ordinance permits, which is a standard, clearly, but there's also national studies. There are studies that we have done or the group has done for Walters for the other developments that they have that shows senior affordable developments, we can utilize less parking and still remain fully operational without an issue with parking. So that's pretty much the only opportunity really to reduce the amount of impervious in parking.
Now, the new Mount Laurel 5 zone is codified at section 150-25.4 of the ordinance. Have you reviewed that ordinance? Now, is it correct that we meet the minimum lot size, lot frontage, and all setback requirements?
We do.
All right. We meet the minimum building setback to internal parking, correct?
We do, yes.
We meet the maximum building height, which is 4 stories or 50 feet, correct?
We do, yes.
We meet the maximum permitted density, which is the maximum number of units per acre, which is 60 units, correct?
60 units, yep.
And the ordinance requires 1 space per unit or 60 parking spaces, and we meet that requirement.
We do, in physical construction, and we exceed it from a calculation
Okay.
perspective pursuant to zoning.
Is it correct that the only thing that we don't meet in the new ordinance is the maximum impervious coverage?
It is,
And we propose 50% where 40% is permitted?
yes.
Okay, why do we propose 50 rather than 40% impervious coverage?
So the fair share plan and the housing element as adopted contemplates 60 units. And you heard me say earlier in testimony that this is a 4-story building. Not that that's unusual, but most of these, a lot of these end up being 3-story, so they larger in footprint. In this case, it's more efficient. We've tightened it up as much as we can to make it the footprint that you see. And just the way the math shakes out, to have 60 units and 60 spaces, there are minimum unit sizes required by HMFA to be able to qualify for funding. So this building is not oversized, and the parking spaces as shown is they're fully compliant with RSIS by way of dimensional standards. And sometimes RSIS is less in size than what would be some municipal standards. And what I mean by that is the spaces are 9 by 18, the driveways are 24 feet. We really can't go any smaller or we'll be non compliant. So just by the physical need of the 60 unit development, we end up at 50% impervious coverage. The remaining or the existing zoning that was underlying this site was 60% permitted coverage, as is the entirety of everything around it. The original intent, my understanding was it was going to be adopted as this zone to have 60%, and it was adopted at 40, more or less following in line with another Mount Laurel section that was generally used as a base for that one, for this one.
Okay.
Have you calculated if you eliminated the 6 parking spaces and used part of the wings in that entry area,
Yep.
what the impervious cover would go to at that point?
It would drop less than 2%.
That's the only variance that we require. Is that correct, Mr. Shula?
That is, and then that waiver we talked about.
Will granting that variance create any adverse impact on the surrounding properties?
No, and I can go through variance proofs in detail now if you'd like.
Let's just go with that question.
Okay.
Will granting that variance create any material adverse impact on the surrounding properties?
No,
Because we comply with the stormwater requirements?
fully, yes,
Okay. And we comply with the parking requirements?
we do.
Will granting that variance change the nature and character of the neighborhood in any way?
No, it will not.
Will we work with the planner to buffer the parking area, which of course makes up a significant portion of the impervious coverage?
We will.
Is it correct that we comply with all the other provisions in the ordinance?
We do.
In your opinion, as a professional planner, would granting that variance substantially impair the purpose and intent of the zone plan and the master plan?
It will
The
not.
zoning ordinance and the master plan?
It will not. So the connotative, what Damien's mentioning is specific language in municipal land use law. So it's the negative criteria. So there's 2 prongs to it. Generally says that we have to show there's no substantial detriment to the public good. The courts have held that that means impact to the immediately surrounding area, which obviously is site around it. The second prong is to not impair the spirit, purpose, or intent of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. The zone plan in that context is the master plan. So we mentioned earlier that the fair share plan and the housing element were updated to include this site, contemplated 60 units. You heard me say earlier that in order to fit 60 units, we need to have, and to accommodate that pursuant to all the other regulatory standards, we need this coverage, which is shown as generally the minimum that can be proposed. So the intent and purpose of the zone plan, the master plan, and the zoning ordinance was to have 60 units on the site. The remaining or the surrounding zoning also permits 60% coverage. So to the potential impairment of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, we fit the 60 units and everything around it is permitted to be at 60%. This site was permitted at 60%. I feel that it fully meets the intent of the ordinance and fits into the surrounding area with no issue and definitely no negative impact.
Okay. One of the review letters points out that we propose light poles that are 20 feet in height, but the ordinance limits that to 18 feet. Is it correct that we'll comply with that ordinance limit?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So we do not seek any relief for the light pole height?
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
There were some comments in, there was a comment in one of the review letters that states that you have to have, I believe it's 1 tree for every 300 feet of basin perimeter. Is it correct that will comply with that requirement?
So yeah, there was 3 different standards of shade trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs, the quantity based on the length of the basin. We didn't show as many ornamental trees as what the ordinance proposed or requires. We show evergreen trees. We can mix them up however I can work it out with your planner, but we will be compliant if that's desired. If it's better to have the evergreens, then we'll do that.
Okay. On page 4 of Mr. Hoder's letter, he has a comment number letter E, which talks about buffering all sides of the basin. Can you address that, Mr. Shulo?
Yes, so in many cases, as the board fully aware, most likely, the buffer standards that are imposed for stormwater features are intended to buffer the view of that feature from neighboring parcels. In this case, we show existing vegetation to remain, which can be supplemented if deemed necessary. We have buffer on the other side towards the residential, and a buffer along the rear. We don't propose buffer plantings between the basin and our building because there's maintenance access and general visibility. So to the extent that that somehow generates a need for relief, we respectfully request it to allow that area between the building and the basin to remain open.
Okay. There is a comment on page 5 of Mr. Hoder's letter, comment 1H, which states that the ordinance requires the paving specification to be 4 inches thick, or the base to be 4 inches thick, and the top coat to be 2 inches thick. What do we propose?
Our detail shows 1.5-inch top course and 3-inch base course. The reason for that is it's compliant with New Jersey residential site improvement standards, which by law is the maximum that can be imposed on a residential application anywhere in the state. And I'm not saying that in like an argumentative or combative way. It's cost generative to propose more pavement than that. It's an affordable housing job. It doesn't necessarily need it. It's not public pavement. This is owned and maintained by the developer. So to the extent any relief is needed from the township ordinance to be compliant with state standard, I guess we respectfully request that.
So when I mentioned in my introduction that we're going to comply with the comments in the letter, subject to a few clarifications, those two, comment 1E on page 4, comment 1H on page 5 are two clarifications, correct?
They are.
All right. Stay on that same page 5 of Mr. Hoder's letter. Can you explain where our basin will drain to?
Sure. So I mentioned that the site generally drains from South River Road to the back of the site on this eastern edge towards the existing feature to the south of us. This proposed facility, since there is no downstream connection point such as a pipe system off-site, we propose a spillway or an outlet structure, that's going to be in this corner I'm pointing at here, which is the southern corner of the facility that'll have an outlet box, a typical type E type of inlet, just a box with a grate, and have a couple orifice in it and a pipe that leaves that structure. That pipe will discharge that grate in this corner. And it's the flattest part of the site that leaves and goes into this existing stormwater feature to the rear. So that's where all the flow goes today. That's where it will all continue to go in the future. The difference between the two and what the comment that Mr. Hoder brought up in his letter was we're taking what generally amounts to sheet flow along that entire edge that goes out to now kind of concentrating it through that outfall pipe. So the comment that was in the letter was show me where it goes and show me it's stable. Totally reasonable. I want to point out that we are also subject to the state soil erosion sediment control standards. Chapter 21 of that standard has off-site stability requirements that we will have to meet. And by virtue of meeting that standard, which we will justify and show, it will address Mr. Hoder's comments. So that's generally where it goes, out that corner and this existing feature in the rear.
Okay. I think the last comment that I want to address in Mr. Hoder's letter, unless I missed one or more, was comment 2E on page 6, asking us to provide an explanation that we've met the green infrastructure standard requirements.
Yep. So in addition to what is typically seen, I mentioned we have to be fully compliant with RSIS. So RSIS references within it a lot of different type of standards, one of which is the state stormwater rules. Those rules have been updated a few times. They're in their general form since 2004 for most of the quantitative standards. 2021, they adopted a new objective way to deal with low impact standards. So before that, there was a checklist and it said, do your best to meet these things. Everybody say, hey, we did our best, and they just let it go. 2021, they said, we're going to make it so now there's this quantitative, objective way to do it, and they called it green infrastructure, GI. So green infrastructure, or GI, limits drainage areas to certain features, has a table and lists of features that can be used to meet the standards, of which there are 3. Runoff quantity, runoff quality, and groundwater recharge. We meet all 3 of those through the use of a small-scale infiltration basin. That's a specific term in the current version of the stormwater rules. It generally says it's a small drainage area to it, and it's an infiltration feature. In this case, it has sand on the bottom, meets state standard, and it's shallow. Excuse me, won't have standing water in it, won't have any issues with mosquitoes, has to drain within 72 hours, all of which we will fully comply with. And being that other basins in the area, as I mentioned, they're dry, we anticipate the same. To be clear, we weren't able to get on site to do soil testing, so as a condition of preliminary approval, we will do that requisite work, address it with Mr. Hoder in his letter, excuse me, and update this design as necessary, but it fully complies and will continue to do so in the final version of the plan.
Okay. Moving to Ms. Laney's letter on page 6, comment 5, notes a discrepancy between the number of trees shown on your plan and your landscape schedule. Will we address that?
Yeah, we'll fix that.
And we'll work with her to supplement trees and collaborate with her as to the types of trees.
Absolutely.
Okay. Page 7, comment 7, in that same letter from Ms. Laney, asks us to clarify what we propose in terms of signage. Can you address that, please?
So I mentioned that a couple times now, that with the tight time frame, a lot of things had to be assumed. In this case, the ordinance for Mount Laurel 5 permits a building mounted sign. So we showed on the plan as a placeholder, if there were a building mounted sign, it'd be on the front of the building, it would be compliant with ordinance standards. We don't currently propose a building mounted sign. There may be a need for one with a street address or some other name on it for fire protection. I don't know that that's subject to the standard, but to the extent that it might be, it'll be fully compliant with the zoning ordinance. We also propose a freestanding sign, which is shown in the left corner of the site here, the southern, or excuse me, the eastern corner. That again, will be similarly compliant with the ordinance standards. In our detail, the dimensions may not have been presented properly. We will revise that detail to be fully compliant with ordinance standards.
Moving to Mr. Ferrando's letter, just 2 comments that I want you to address. First is, there's a question as to whether the applicant will use vans with this facility. Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, so this is in the context of services provided. As you can imagine, with a senior building, some social services are necessary. In this case, Walters provides quite a few. But they're not going to be full-time staff that parks on site or leaves a van on site. So it'll be available for shuttling the residents to appointments they have or other activities in town, but it won't park on site.
Lastly, can you explain whether you've evaluated turning templates or turning movements for trash trucks and emergency vehicles?
So we did for a trash truck, and it's shown in the plans as submitted, and it will circulate through the driveways and back into that trash space with no issue. And again, the driveways and the parking lot are fully compliant with RSI's dimensional standards, and that generally was set up by the state to accommodate most vehicles. We don't have the fire apparatus for the township, but when we get those specs, we can run it. To be clear, though, to the extent that maybe it can't maneuver through the site as easily as one would hope, RSI, the state standard, is mentioned for multifamily courts, which this qualifies as. It can be up to 300 feet on a dead end without a means to turn around. So worst case, a fire apparatus would have to pull in the driveway and possibly back out. It's contemplated statewide. It's been in the rules since 1997. It's not ideal, but it's the way things typically go. We hope we never have to have that issue, but we have to design for it. I want to also point out that the building will have fire suppression, which is required by state code. So firefighting apparatus won't really have a need to get to the building. It'll be suppressed.
Okay. And we'll evaluate the truck turning template for a fire truck as a condition of
We will.
preliminary. Okay.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Shula, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if when Mr. Shul is up, if you like, and then we can go, or should we hear all their professionals first, or?
I would prefer to hear traffic before.
Okay, so we'll go through.
We're ready to roll right through, and then
Keep
we can
rolling.
answer all the questions when you choose to ask them.
Okay, let's do that.
Thanks. Our next witness is going to be Joseph Del Duca. All right, Joe, can you start by explaining what your role is with the Walters Group?
Yes, I'm the owner of the Walters Group. Been employed there for 20-something years. I am by background an attorney, similar to my brother. And my primary job is dealing with affordable housing in the state of New Jersey.
And can you give us a brief overview as to who Walters Group is?
Sure. Well, our main office is located in Barnegat, New Jersey. I'm located in Haddonfield, New Jersey. And we do other things, but predominantly we build affordable housing in the state of New Jersey. We do everything from developing. We have our own general contracting company, so we do our own GC work, and we have our own management team, so we do our own managing of all of our affordable communities. We've never sold a community. We have no desire to sell one. We currently own somewhere around 2,000 plus units, apartment units in the state of New Jersey. We probably have another close to 1,000 that are we have funding for, but haven't been built yet. And of course, we have quite a few more in the pipeline, which would be what this would qualify as.
Were you present during my introductory comments?
I was.
Were they factually accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Now, do you or the Walters Group have other similar senior affordable housing communities like the one proposed here?
Yes.
And will this community operate similar to those that you already have?
It will.
So, and is it correct that we require preliminary site plan approval tonight for the reasons that I mentioned from a timing perspective?
Yeah, that is correct. And as many of the people sitting here today know the sort of sprint that we've all been through and been very, very difficult, not just on Cranberry, but on other towns. I think even more difficult on Cranberry, but yes, we've all had to deal with that. What I've made clear in any conversations that I've had, and there have been many, with people in Cranberry, is that first of all, we appreciate that you're out here on August 26th at a special meeting. Not an easy thing to do, to get everybody together. And more importantly, the idea here, this is not a commercial transaction. This is a collaborative transaction, as you suggested, through the plan and making meeting the town's requirements. So it's a little bit different in the sense that, okay, we meet, we check the boxes, which was talked about. This is more than checking the boxes. This is a collaborative effort. We've committed from the beginning to work with the town. We didn't have time from June 30th to getting this completed to do as much collaborating with the town and with your professionals, and in particular with the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, as we would have liked, and as I'm sure you all would have liked. Being able to get preliminary site plan approval at this point, we recognize, as you indicated, is the first step, and that's all it is. We have every intention and welcome the opportunity to sit down, go through the plans, and to the extent possible, make any adjustments that make this the best it can be. Every town's a little bit different. Every town has its own hot button issues, things that are really important to them. And you need to design around those things and to the extent that it's possible, meet those requirements. Again, we do have financial limits, the 9% tax credits, limit what you can do. The sky is not the limit. Rents, as I think you've implied, maybe didn't state, are very limited. So this isn't like a commercial regular property where you can increase rents or you can do what you can do to cover expenses. It doesn't work that way. This is a very tightly regulated situation. Inside of those parameters, there's plenty of room for working with a community to make a design the best it can be. We've done that all over the state. I know I've indicated that to many people in the township who I know have checked our credentials and have confirmed that that's the case. We intend to do that. We look forward to that process. That's not a process that we worry about. It's a process that we welcome.
Now, in this case, you're proposing 60 units, correct?
Correct.
All seniors,
Correct.
which means at least one of the residents has to be 55 or older?
Well, yes, except there is it's a federal law, and there is an exception for people with disabilities. So someone's got to be at least 55 years or older, or a person with disabilities.
Okay. And is it correct that 55 of the 60 units will be regular senior units, and the other 5 will be what they call special needs units?
Correct.
And what is a special needs unit?
Well, it depends. It could be a number of things. It's people generally with disabilities. In this case, 3 of them, I think, are for people with physical disabilities. One of them is for visually, and 2 of them are for visually or audio impaired. So we design and build things in that unit so that folks can do that. And all of our ground floor units are adaptable so that we can put all the handicap infrastructure that needs to go in. And what you find is that over time, as people age in place, and that's what happens here, more and more of those folks, you want them to stay and be able to live independently. So you'll go in and upgrade their unit and do all the things that you need to do to make them fully accessible, if I've got my legal terms
Now, let's talk about some numbers. Is it correct that 56 of the 60 will be one bedroom?
Correct.
And the other 4 will be how many bedrooms?
2 bedrooms.
Now, is it also correct that each of these units will be restricted by a deed restriction that limits our ability to rent these units to people who qualify for the applicable income limits?
Correct.
And is it also correct that there are very low, low, and moderate income units?
That is the standard.
And those are 3 different income limitations, right?
Correct.
Is it correct that there will be 8 very low units here,
Yes.
22 low,
Yes.
and 30 moderate?
Correct.
Is that a number you made up, or is that a requirement?
No, that's part of the regulations.
And that's a number that the municipality is bound by.
Correct, in order to get credit for the units.
So in order to get credit for the units, we have to comply with that income mix and record a deed restriction that restricts this community to individuals who meet those income limitations.
Yes.
Last, but certainly not least, Mr. Shul talked about staffing. Can you give everyone an idea of how this community will be staffed?
Sure. We have somebody on site, a property management person during business hours at all times. We also have property maintenance at all times. Some of our communities, we have a live-in superintendent. I'm not sure that we'll have that here. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But when we don't, there's a phone number and text messaging and various other ways. It's a little tougher for seniors to make sure that they can get in touch with people they usually call as opposed to text or send an email. And somebody's available around the clock to come out and do whatever they need to do. In addition, we provide social services in the community. We have a social service coordinator, and we have a whole social services staff. Those social services folks come out, they meet with the people, they make sure everybody's doing well, they communicate between these folks and their families. We also have a nurse that comes out and spends, I think it's 20 hours a month, get the exact number, but they're there to help with, this isn't assisted living and it's not a nursing home facility, but you provide those services so that folks are able to, to stay. Again, the idea here is to have folks stay independent for as long as possible. So we provide all of those services.
Now, the minimum age is 55, but is that the typical age?
No. As I indicated, the tendency is that folks, the average age gets older and older every year the community's open. The average age would be the youngest when it opens. I don't know the exact number, but the average age is over 70, even when you open. But it gets older and older as you go. Again, the idea is to have folks stay there as long as possible.
Lastly, I know Mr. Boyle, our architect, is going to testify next about the architectural features, but can you just talk for a second about what you've tried to achieve as an organization as it relates to the quality of the architecture and the features that are offered to these residents?
Yes, very important to us. And I know I've asked the folks in Cranberry to go visit some of the other communities that we've built. I think Branchburg might be the closest one here. It's 150 units there. It's actually 2 communities. And again, the architecture there probably a little bit different than here. But there's certain things that we like to do to make sure that things are the way they want to be. One is we always use hardy plank siding, which is a cement-based siding. We've never used vinyl or those kinds of products, which most people do. So from the outside, that's one thing we do. The exterior portions of the building are very important to us. The details are important. Again, we really didn't have the time to dig in as deeply as we would have liked here. We'll work through that. We do typically have a patio, an outdoor space for every unit. Not usually a big space, but it's nice to be able to just get outside, have a cup of coffee, read a book, and give people a little room to be able to have outdoor space. We'll also have amenities. We'll have outdoor spaces for people to be. And again, in the senior communities and the family communities, that balcony in your unit is a lot more important. The senior communities like to be together. And so it's more important to have those amenities central. And so there'll be porches and outdoor spaces. Typically, we have grills. We'll have some activities for seniors. We'll have a gym. We have community rooms so that we can have various events. One of the things we do is every year in all of our communities, we have something called the senior prom, which is, kind of funny, but it's extremely popular and a lot of fun. And what you find is that as people age in place and get to know each other, sometimes they've been isolated and have lived in a home where they really needed to get out of, but didn't have an ability to do it. They become very social, and it's very important in the senior communities to have those kinds of events, which we do regularly. The other thing we do, it may sound silly to some people, but every survey we've ever taken, it's by far the most important amenity in a community is a washer and dryer side by side in your unit. We don't share washers and dryers. Almost every other developer that does what we do they have a common area, sort of a laundromat inside. We don't do that. We have the washer and dryer inside the unit. There are various other upgrades and things that we do, from flooring to the kitchens. I won't bore you with all those details. I think they're good details to talk about when we meet with the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, so we can go down them and make sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing. But I think it's important for you to understand sort of the mentality and the process of what we try and achieve.
Can you tell us what the significance or importance is of having the community amenities in the same building, in a central location, as opposed to in a separate building?
Well, I mean, for the obvious reasons, when you have seniors, we typically in a family community like to have a standalone clubhouse. All the community areas sort of centered around that. In our senior communities, we have it in the building so that people don't have to go outside. They don't have to leave the building. The seniors lazy is not the right word, but it's hard for them. It may be difficult to walk even 25 to 30 steps, and they're not going to go to a place that isn't centrally located. So it's important generally to have those amenities proximate to where these folks live.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions I have for Mr. Del Duca. Our next witness is Arnold Boyle, our architect, who will have some brief testimony. Why don't you put that Thanks, Arnie. Mr. Boyle, you've been sworn, but can you briefly review your professional background?
Sure. I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey. Been registered for 10 years. Graduated New Jersey Institute of Technology in 2005. Been practicing architecture since I graduated full-time, and principal architect at Walters Architecture.
At Walters Architecture, and is your architectural license in good standing in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
And have you qualified as an expert in architecture before other land use boards?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we'd ask the board to accept Mr. Boyle as an expert in architecture.
We accept.
Thank you. On the screen, you have page 6 of Exhibit A2, which is a color rendering of the proposed building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you just tell us or give us an overview of the primary exterior architectural features?
Sure. So what we're proposing here is a 4-story residential building, as we discussed, in a very traditional design. We featured a 2-story covered entryway, gable roofs, traditional style railings, split windows with grills, hardy plank siding, we talked about, hardy panel siding, brick base, and brick detailing. We incorporate very traditional style trims, so we don't use vinyl trims. They're all hardy or they're AZEK trims.
That's it? Okay. Now, there was a comment in one of the letters, probably Ms. Laney's letter, asking us to evaluate the side elevations as to whether we can add some additional windows. I know they're not shown on page 6 of Exhibit A2. They're shown, I believe, on page 5 of Exhibit A2. Do you have that elevation that you can put up on the easel? Thank you. Now, this is page 5 of Exhibit A2. Correct, Mr. Boyle?
Correct.
Can you point out where the side elevations are? Is it correct that we're willing to work with the board professionals to try to provide some additional architectural interest on those elevations?
Correct. Yeah, we were actually working today in the office to how we can add more fenestration for components, maybe add some box bay windows, try to add some more detailing. Again, this was put together relatively quickly, so we didn't have time to develop these as much as we did the front and back elevation.
Okay. Can you tell the board what types of amenities we're currently contemplating for the residents?
Sure. So the building, as I said before, is 60 affordable senior units. The whole building will be equipped with an automatic fire suppression system, There's 2 elevators located in the central corridor. Probably easy on your plan, you can show them. There will be when you're into the building, there's a 2-story lobby there. Within that lobby, we're going to have our management offices. There's a wellness center. There's package pickup and storage. There is a fitness room. As you go through that,
Can you just identify that sheet number
Sure.
before you discuss it?
sheet A 1.1.
Which is page 1 of Exhibit A2. Go ahead.
It's the first floor plan. So as you enter the building, we'll go through this entry porch, the vestibule, the lobby. As you continue down, there will be a 2-story community room that will have a kitchenette, that outdoor patio that we discussed earlier. Right off that are public restrooms, that wellness center, and these centrally located elevators. Outside every elevator lobby, as you go up the building, there will be seating areas that are fully furnished by our interior designer, as well as the community room will be fully furnished by our interiors.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have for architect, Mr. Boyle. Our final witness will be our traffic engineer, John McCormick. And again, Mr. Boyle will be here if there are any questions for him when we're finished. Not at all. Mr. McCormick, let's start by briefly reviewing your professional qualifications.
Absolutely. Good evening. John McCormick, McCormack. I'm a principal with Dynamic Traffic. I have a Bachelor's of Civil Engineering from Villanova University. I have a New Jersey PE license and been practicing traffic engineering for more than 30 years, unfortunately. I have been on this side of the table all over the state with other developers. I've also been in Mr. Ferranda's seat as a board review professional.
And Mr. Chairman, we'd ask that the board accept Mr. McCormick as an expert traffic engineer.
We do.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick, did you author a traffic report dated August 12th, 2025?
I did.
And was the purpose of that report to evaluate both the projected traffic volumes for the senior community and secondly, a parking assessment?
It was.
Okay. Can you first address the traffic impact or traffic volumes that you evaluated?
Sure. Maybe I'll just go through a couple topics I have. Is that all right? So while I was brought on just to do a traffic and parking assessment, since we have the review letters, I can talk a little bit about some of the other facets of traffic that we've been discussing tonight. I love going behind Jay. He hits all the high points for me, but I'll just hit the access, which Jay mentioned. We have 2 points of access. There's 2 currently out there today, 2 existing driveways. Those will be improved basically in the same location. And remember that the county jurisdiction, South River Road. So it's up to the county exactly what the driveways look like. We have heard Mr. Ferranda's suggestions and we like them, but it's not up to us. But we will bring that up to the county when we make that application. When I look at the driveways, I always look at sightline first. The sightlines are actually very good out here. South River Road is very straight. It's relatively level. Whichever access scenario is chosen, whether it's 2 driveways or one ways or anything else, the sightlines are very good. So I'm very confident that the drivers both entering and exiting our site will have no issue with the sightlines. I will talk about the trip generation. There's not a lot to talk about when you have a senior affordable apartment development. It is one of the lowest traffic generators you're going to see at this board. That is proven by the ITE, which you've probably heard traffic engineers mention, the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They put out a publication, Trip Generation. It's about that thick. It's got almost every land use you can imagine. And it goes around the country and it tabulates and takes recordings of traffic generation, summarizes it all. That's what Andrew and I use. There's a specific land use in that book. It's land use 223. Affordable housing for seniors. So it's very specific, it's very appropriate. That ITE estimates this site is going to generate about 10 trips in the peak hours. So 10 trips in the morning, 10 trips in the afternoon, and some combination of trips throughout the day. But it's a very, very low traffic generator. Just to put that into perspective a little bit, I mean, that's 1 trip every 5 minutes or so. You know, when the Route 130 jug handle loads up behind the Dunkin' up at the light, there's probably 20 cars in that queue every time the light turns. So we're talking about having 10 cars, 5 or 6 in, 5 or 6 out, over an hour. So that's the order of magnitude of this site. It's going to be the lowest generating site on South River Road by far, with the exception of the senior single families next to us. And then I'll touch on parking. We do satisfy the ordinance 1-to-1. We satisfy that. As Jay mentioned, there are EV credits that could be taken. We are not taking them at this point, but that could be something that is worked in. We can get a 10% credit, so we could actually put 54 parking spaces and be totally compliant with the requirement. We know that 1-per-1 is plenty. We know that a couple different ways. One, the ITE. I go back to ITE. Not only do they have a traffic generation manual, they have a parking generation manual. Same type of thing. The 85th percentile, which is the number at which 85% of the senior affordable projects have a parking demand at, is 0.8 parking spaces per unit. So that equates to 48 required spaces for this project. That's what the ITE recommends. We have also done our own internal recordings. I put that in our report. I listed about 5 or 6 that are most proximate to Cranberry, and we show the actual demand of fully operational functioning developments. The actual demand, the average is 0.76. So the ITE is pretty good. They got it pretty close. We're very comfortable with a 0.8 number. A 1-per-1 number is fantastic because it covers a lot of board's concerns. So we're very comfortable with however this lands, whether it's 60 spaces, 54 spaces, or somewhere in between, that the parking is more than enough to accommodate our residents. I mean, that's really the traffic story for this development.
A couple follow-up.
Please.
One is a question that Mr. Ferranda asked, and that is, we show 3 ADA parking spaces on site, which complies with the applicable requirements, correct? Is it also correct that the developer has an open parking arrangement, but reserves the right in his leases to assign parking in case someone has a need, a handicap or other special need?
Absolutely. The Walters Group likes to provide obviously what is required in the number, but don't over assign the parking. If in fact, just like they can adapt a unit in the building, they can adapt a parking space. The parking spaces that are right along the front are all ADA grade, acceptable. They could accommodate somebody, but we don't want to over assign it, because then we may have a situation where there's an empty parking space right in the front when we don't need that. So like you've heard from Joe and everyone else, this building is managed. This is not built and left. And that's what that management team focuses on.
Lastly, well, 2 questions. Does the data that you've shared with us include visitor parking? Does it take that into account?
Absolutely. ITE data all includes residents, visitors, and personnel at the building, as do our demand recordings. Obviously, we went out to the parking lots. We know how many units, and we went around and we counted it numerous times, and that's how we developed our own internal parking demand summary. So it absolutely includes everyone that's on the property.
In your opinion, is the proposed access, site circulation, and parking safe, efficient, and in accordance with industry standards?
Yes, it is.
Thanks. That's all the questions I have for our traffic engineer, Mr. McCormick. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes our plan presentation. Of course, we reserve the right to comment based on testimony from others.
Well, thank you. That was an extremely thorough presentation. I sincerely appreciate that.
Thank you.
What I would like to propose real quick is a 5-minute break before our professionals go in. I would sincerely appreciate that.
Sure.
And then I'm going to turn it over to our board members for comment, and then to the public for comment. Okay, so that's the way I would like to go from here on out for the rest of the evening.
Mr. Chair, do you want to get comments from our own professionals?
I'm going to take a quick break for like 5 minutes.
No, I mean.
Yes, our professionals are going to go first, correct. So
Great.
I'm going to adjourn for 5 minutes and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
We hope to keep it very. Yeah, we already got approved. So, yeah, that's all right. How long does it take to get there? And getting home be a little less? Yeah, I live in Bridge. Yeah. No traffic, of course. Yeah. Well, those people are, they're never going to the line. No matter what you do, it's not going to.
Sort of putting together documents today, show them about buildings.
And all you can do is bet and we'll see what, you know, when those the elected officials. They'll either rezone it or. But if they don't, they just want to. See, it's not good for the system. For us, it's not great. The week, yes. But it'll be cool. It'll be cool.
I'll see you cool though.
Yeah.
There's nothing like
Yeah. I don't know who's looking for it. Not me.
That's all, 7, 8 million.
They're out there though. They're out there in the ranks. That is correct. Yeah. No, it's a no, it's a ton. Sisters, they bought this place in 56. Bay Ocean is magnificent. It's unbelievable.
Right, Harvest Heaters. They have, they want to sell.
Because they're all, my niece was done. And she was in the Philippines. And then she got home. She has a really good take care of us. That wasn't easy. That's so, this case, that'll take care of our system for a long time. But, and that's all we use it for. Am I gonna have any That makes no sense to them. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to control that?
Nothing wrong with you. Because I'm making all this.
Everybody else has houses around. I was told it would never be built. Who told you that? Where is it in my house? Not even here. I had 60 people.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. Okay, what I'd like to do is, now that we've had a few minute break, then our professionals are ready to go. So I don't know who wants to start first. I'll let you guys fight it out over there. So
Thank you. David Hoder, engineer for the board. I did a letter on the 20th. What I'd like to just do is go through some of the things that I think are more important. And actually, the engineer for the applicant has gone through a lot of them anyway, but I may provide some emphasis for a couple of things. Waivers requested. As you know now, I request the board to take a look at the waivers from the checklist that the applicant asks for, and then eventually put them in the resolution if they so feel that they could be granted. And I've let the application move forward between completeness to the board level with these waivers, but the board is really the decision factor on it. The first one was 29, the survey that has since been provided. They now have a topographic and outbound survey, so that's good. Item 31 is meets and bounds, which is the same thing. It gives you the distances and bearings of all the survey information. So those two are no longer needed. Item 41, percolation tests. That is a waiver that has to be granted as part of this application if you approve it. Road and underground utility cross sections. Item 53. They did not do that. They don't really need it. This is not a major plan. So that is a waiver I think the board should grant. Environmental impact statement, number 59. It's up to the board whether or not you want them to provide an environmental impact statement. This particular property, I think most of us have known it and watched it over the last 10, 15 years or longer and know what's there and know how this new project will impact the surrounding properties of the roadway system, and et cetera, which is often in an environmental impact statement. So if the board feels that you can grant it, then you grant a waiver from item 59. Item 60, earthwork calculations. It's a very flat site. We don't have the final grading yet because we didn't have the initial topo. So that it could change, but in reality, the engineer for the applicant would do a great disservice to his client if he did something strange with the grading. So he should be working with the grades that are out there. And if I can ask you, is that what you did?
We will, and we have, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Always.
So therefore, I think you can waive item number 60 if you wish to do so. And then item 61 has to do with the proposals to remove a tree. This one's a little sketchy in the fact that I think there was something in the new Mount Laurel ordinance that said that they're exempt from some of this. But in any case, I did ask them to send an application over to the Shade Tree Commission. They have now done that by email, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so item 61 is not needed. So waivers requested that have to be either granted or not by the board are 41, 53, 59, 60.
David, could you go back over the environmental impact statement again?
Sure. Well,
Explain
normally an environmental impact statement is provided on a site plan.
Yeah, and that environmental impact statement includes what?
Usually what they do is they take a look at what the site is like in terms of vegetation. They talk about what type of animals, whether there's deer or turtles or anything on the site. They tell you whether generally they look at what the soils are like, get an idea what the vegetation is like, what some of the prior uses were, and whether or not they would have had any environmental impact to the site or surrounding areas. Like if this was once an oil refinery, well, we better have a little bit of study going on. But I don't think it was. I'm sure as part of your work, you'll have a phase one done.
Yes, and we're happy to provide.
And I'd like to see that just to make sure.
Okay, that's what I was concerned
Yeah,
about.
and that really would give us on on what was probably once a residential property can turn commercial,
Mhm.
that's probably all you need.
All
That's
right.
my opinion. Okay, so in terms of the other parts of the letter, the engineer went through most of it. I'll leave all the zoning to Liz. Let's see. They did say they would work with us on doing some additional plantings around the basin. That is good. I asked that wasn't talked about, that the heated water enclosure on the front, which has check valves, be painted the green as per our ordinance and as per previous requests that we've done, so that it blends in.
Dave, can I ask about that? New Jersey American has no issue with you doing that.
They've done it before.
Okay.
Well, maybe you've done it, not them. But I think, it's an aluminum box, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It
yeah,
does
you're gonna
look-
have, you'd have to treat it with a special solvent of some kind. And
Yeah.
then have it painted. So,
Oh, good.
it's not a big deal. It happens. Okay.
David, as you go through these, could you identify where on your letter you're up to?
Okay, that's item 1F.
Is
Do you have my letter?
Page 5.
page 5? And, yeah,
Oh, you know what? In my pages right here, I have 4 and 5 mixed up, so I'm going backwards, but that's okay.
keep us on our toes.
So there were no comments on page 1. Page 2 was all about the waivers that I just went through. Okay. Page 3 was the only comment I wanted to talk about was the buffers under C3. Okay, and then I'll go to 4 because that's where I should be. 4, I asked for data having to do with existing trees. Now that they have a survey, I think the trees can be spotted on there and we know what trees we'll be losing in terms of new construction versus what's there now. Item 4, signage. The signage does exceed the ordinance, and I think Liz will get into that. But they also said that they will, I think they said they would scale it back to the ordinance requirement. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's good. So, and then under other engineering items, which starts my 1 again, got to change it to board engineer. I'm not the town engineer, fortunately. I wanted to see those trees put on the demolition plan. You could do that, right?
Yes.
Trees that you have spotted in. And then back to 5, which is 1F. I asked about the water heater enclosure and if it'd be painted. They said yes. On 1I, I asked whether or not the pavement apron detail could be reinforced concrete, unless the county has something different. I mean, it'd probably be just up to the county.
Yeah, no issue by us.
Okay. And then item 2B with stormwater. Yeah,
Just ask you about
sure.
the base of 4 inches and the top of 2 inches. The testimony was that 1.5 inch top course and 3-inch base. What's your feeling on that?
Okay, well, I acquiesce in the fact that the RSIS standards do apply, which means what they have is correct. But I always try to ask for our standards, see if they'll give it to us. A lot of them just do. In this case, it's an affordable housing situation. They have maximum limits on the amount of money they can spend. I did have a conversation with the engineer off record today about the fact that if they do find out the soils are bad, they'll increase it to make it work. So they'll design the paving and the parking lot to the standards needed for the type of soil that's on site. They don't anticipate that, but you never know.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So I got that out of them. That was good. Okay, then in terms of the drainage, they did a good job in terms of how to do the drainage, considering that they didn't have topo before they started. But I am concerned with one item, and that's that they're running, as the engineer for the applicant said, they are running all the flows to the one corner of the site near the truck storage selling area behind that residential house. And there is a basin of some kind that's part of the hotel that's back there. I don't know the nature of it. I haven't walked it. I might eventually when we get more information in, so I'll know what I'm looking at and have the paper in front of me. But the idea is they're taking shallow concentrated flow, or shallow flow along the whole back of that rear of the property, and they're bringing it all into one spot. Now, it is being detained in a basin. Some of it's going to be put into the ground, meaning recharge. But still, I want to know where it's going to go. I don't want it to flood out a parking lot where, at the adjacent trailer facility. I don't want it to overwhelm that one particular spot right there or overwhelm the basin. So we now have some topo, which we got from the new survey, but I've asked for additional topo in that general area to know where it flows. So once the water pops out of the pipe on site, it goes somewhere. And there are state standards having to do with soil conservation that the applicant has to conform to, and that will help me in my job to make sure that there's no erosion back there. But I want to make sure that it doesn't take some strange turn and wind up in a parking lot or in at the corner of some building or in a place we don't want it. So that,
Yeah, because we don't want
that has
to,
be
we don't want to
figured out.
cause a problem somewhere else
Yeah,
later on.
exactly, offsite. So that has to be figured out, and that's something that would be a subject to if this board approves this application. Otherwise, the drainage application, the drainage calculations are good. They're in accordance with our ordinance and the state ordinance. I did ask somewhere in the letter, and I got to find it, that you do something to the front zipper drains, as I call them. I'm not used to seeing, maybe you can provide some information to me on this, zipper drains that are only so wide and not very deep, exited by a pipe. So how is that detail going to work?
So the trench drain that we spec, and for the board's knowledge, what I mean by trench drain is when you say zipper drain, I want to make sure it's
Trench
clear
drain.
it's not a skinny little zipper. These are drains that have a 12-inch wide minimum width, and they look like more or less like a long catch basin, like an inlet. There's a concrete trough, for instance, trench that was about a foot deep and a foot wide, or maybe more depending on the pipe size leaving. In this case, it'll be a 15-inch. So at the end of that, the concrete opening, which you can imagine it as like a gutter, but concrete. At the end of it, we'll have a pipe connection, and the water will just go through that.
So the end of the trench drain will be fashioned in a way that will allow for the pipe to enter into it,
Yes,
seal to it.
yes.
Okay, well, that's acceptable then.
Very, very similar to how pipes exit concrete stormwater inlet boxes. It's
Right, I just didn't think it would be big enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we deal with it quite a bit. As you can imagine, with urban work, it's
Right,
similar detail.
Right.
So I'll provide all that for you.
okay. And then we talked about, the applicant's engineer said.
As
that
a
they would-
result of that, though, Dave, sorry, you're okay with not having the inlet boxes on the ends of
Yes.
it if we do that detail?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Okay, so I was just going to go to lighting real quick, and that they did say that they were going to reduce, this is item 3. Yes, on page 7. AI is, talks about 18 feet versus 20, and they acquiesced and said they would do that. And then item C, I'd like to see a foot candle map, point-to-point foot candle map be provided, which is a point-to-point, it has every 10 feet or so, it has information on what the lighting level is. So you don't get hot spots. You can get a minimum and a max, and you can get an average, and you get an average high and average low. And it really helps you give you an idea whether or not you're going to get blinded out there or it's going to be too dark.
And this is something we ask for all applicants on our sites. for
It's not in
parking.
our ordinance, but I asked for it.
Right.
and I've
But
been
I'm
getting
saying
I've been getting
we've asked for this in the past.
It's done usually free by a lighting company if you buy their lights.
Dave, nothing's free, but yes, we'll get it. We'll do it. We'll do it. No problem.
Okay. Soil logs, the rest of the items in my letter on page 6, they said they would just do. And G is the item we talked about with the inlets, and that I will acquiesce on that one. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Gerald, I have a quick question. For the waivers, do we need to grant them tonight as a preliminary, or would we grant them in the final?
They would be granted tonight, but if you wanted to condition the waiver, just granting it for this application, but subject to further review and
Right.
final.
Okay, that makes sense then. Thank you.
Yeah, some of them, they may provide between now and then.
Right.
But you grant them now. In other boards, they would call them a temporary waiver. Yes.
So while we're on that topic, the 4 waivers that Mr. Hoder called out, 3 of which we do request a waiver, we don't think we need them at final, which are 53, 59, and 60. The 141, which is the percolation test, we will do that. I just want to defer that.
Or you'll do equivalent, and maybe not exactly percolation tests, but because there's no septic
Permeability
involved.
testing in support of the
Yeah.
stormwater. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Any other questions? Dave?
Nothing.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Would you mind putting up the rendering so we can see the access and parking circulation?
that's Exhibit A1.
There was quite a bit of testimony given about the access and the circulation by both the engineer and the traffic engineer. I just want to call attention to the existing driveways are virtually in the vicinity of what you have there now. And that straddles the entrance to the ramp to 130. My suggestion to make them inbound and outbound, separate the movements, was with the thought that the south driveway would be inbound to bring traffic a little further south and get it out of the way of that ramp so that they're not stopping where vehicles are trying to get into the ramp. It just makes sense. I visited the site. There's a stop sign on the north driveway and there's an enter sign on the south driveway. Again, the site hasn't been used in quite a while, but I think that is the intent of this site. Even though it has 2 driveways, as a traffic engineer, I typically say it's better to have more distribution, allow the traffic to get out both ways. But in this case, I truly think it would be safer. I also suggested looking at left turn storage lanes. That was because if a vehicle is turning left and waiting to turn left, I wanted there to be enough room for the vehicles to pass by, but I still think it's better to get them out of that ramp section. And you may not even need a left turn lane because the situation differs. You have less volume following the vehicle. You still have to look at opposing traffic, but you understand what I'm saying, that you just have one lane there. Again, there's a transition at this point too, where you have 2 lanes passing the northern driveway. It would be better not to have the complicated conflicting movements at that point. That's my suggestion, and I believe the county would look favorably on that, but it is the county's jurisdiction, so they really should be looking at that. In addition, and I know you said the site distance is good, the site distance is better from leaving the north driveway to the south because you get 160 additional feet. Vehicles on 130 travel 55 miles an hour or more sometimes, and it's a skew intersection, so they could come off the highway at a very high speed, which may be even more than the 50 miles for the south drive. That being said, I know there's single family houses and there's a commercial site further down, but this site is for seniors who are using potentially their vehicles, and site distance should be maximized in my opinion for that roadway. So I really think it should be pushed for at the county. And I don't think they would disagree with.
We have no problem.
Okay, good. That was my.
As to the one-way driveways, no problem.
As to the one-way drivers, I think even potentially the southern driveway could allow right turns out. If you prohibit left turns, you might even allow the movements across so that they could get into the ramp without, if they wanted to go south on 130, allowing that movement at that driveway where there's less volume and less complication. That's a possibility to have that
Okay.
still 2-way. But the north driveway, I really prefer just outbound.
That's no problem. We'll bring up your concerns and your comments to the county when we
Okay.
apply for that. Because we absolutely have to make application because they have the jurisdiction.
The rest of the comments in the access, I think, are pretty straightforward. Some details, some things to fix up for final. Under circulation, you talked about the staffing. There's no designated parking for the staffing?
No,
Okay, that's
they're
good.
not there all the time. They circulate in and out.
Okay. The drop off and pickup area. It has room for, it looks like 1 or 2 vehicles. My concern is you don't want to block the circulation, the 24-foot circulation aisle. And that gets to the next comment too, deliveries. Where will the deliveries occur on site? And if they are at the pickup and drop off area, I just want to make sure that that type of delivery doesn't interfere with the circulation aisle.
Sure. I mean, there's 2 opportunities on site for deliveries. There's the front door.
Right.
Quick hits in and out. UPS maybe even uses those. And then there's also the paved area over by the trash
Right.
area. So if there's a longer delivery, if there's a move-in, if there's something like that, that type of vehicle can sit in that loading area for an extended period of time.
Such as a box truck, somebody's
Yeah.
moving in with their
Yeah, right.
furniture or whatever, they can back up there and there's a door to an elevator or whatever. it needs.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. I have number 6 on page 3, deals with limited emergency access to the rear of the building. And I'm not necessarily talking about vehicular access. I know the site would not allow that, but is there a pathway or pavers or something should emergency have to get to the rear of the building?
Yeah, there are, Andy. So it's hard to see from there. Try to point it out. So on the right side, the north side of the building, at that loading area that John just pointed out, you'll see there's this layer gray feature here. There's 2 things going on there. There's a widened sidewalk for that trash movement. And then outside the sidewalk, there's also reinforced grass for fire and basin access. So they could come down that edge and get to this rear corner and be able to see down that end. The truck wouldn't be able to get through the back, but the truck could come down that edge of the building.
And along the back of the building, if somebody were in a window and need emergency need to put up a ladder or something to get somebody out a back window, is that possible along the rear?
There's
I know
20
the
feet of
basin is
space.
there and it drops down.
Yeah, there's 20 feet of space from the building. You see this area here that projects off the rear, that's the patio. So that width is available all through there to do what you mentioned. If there's a need for standing on a ladder or anything against a building, it's flat. It doesn't have the basin directly against the foundation.
Again, I will defer to the fire department.
Yeah.
But do you think maybe grass pavers or some surface?
Not typically. So we mentioned we have a bunch of these. There's been a handful that have this almost exact arrangement, and every other fire department anywhere has not asked for that. If they do, of course, we'll coordinate, but it's probably not likely. If they request it, I guess it can be done.
Okay.
But those reinforced grass areas are really made for vehicular traffic, not necessarily ladders. Contractors work on ladders all the time because they're made to sit.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be an issue.
They will do what they have to do to get to the building.
As will we.
Comment number 9, and this is an offsite consideration. This is really up to the county. There is an existing crosswalk up at Security Drive. It's striped. It's just off the plan. I went up there. It's well striped. It's heavy markings, and I don't know if there's pedestrian signs with it.
It's poorly signed.
It's poorly signed.
But it is well striped.
But to get to the other side of the road, that is the crossing. If somebody from this building wanted to go to the Dunkin' Donuts, to the restaurants on the other side, to the dentist, there's quite a bit on the other side of the road. And my thought is to enhance that as best possible. I don't know if that's like a RRF, a flashing pedestrian sign or something along those lines. Request of the county so that maybe they can provide that, because the crosswalk is there. There's 2 lanes in each direction, and then there's left turn lane, so it's a wide crossing, and I'm just thinking,
We're more
Safety.
than happy to ask the county if we put up the static signs just to identify.
that should be the minimal.
I'm actually shocked. They're not there. So.
2 lanes of trucks and cars in each direction with a left turn lane, no signs.
Anything more than that gets into handicap, ADA accessibility, push buttons and other things. We'll put up the static signs. We'll say that to the county. I don't expect, I know what you're saying. That is a path for pedestrians. We don't expect to have.
A whole grouping of people, but there is a Dunkin' Donuts and there are restaurants on that side. I just want to bring that up because, seniors sometimes want to get out and walk a little bit, so.
We'll bring it up with the county.
Okay. Now the EV parking spaces, and I've heard the testimony, actually, you're exceeding the requirement. Good thing. You didn't take the credit. Good thing. It's all good, except, in your opinion, how many seniors will have EV cars that will be charged? And then those EV spaces won't be used, so you're now actually subtracting 12
It's a
spaces.
struggle on every job we
I
have.
know.
And the law says we have to have them. If we could get away from it, we would. It's the market should demand it, but we're not going to get into political discussion. We have to do it, unfortunately. If you guys at the building department level say, we don't care, I don't know.
Well, Andrew, what can we do for more? I mean, I'm not opposed to
I
some,
have
but
the
I
law
mean,
in front of me, and it says you get 15%. 15% would be 9 EV spaces. My recommendation is do not go over those 9, but even those 9 will take away. How many seniors are driving the
know.
latest and greatest EV car that they have to charge up? And now you have those 9 spaces that can't be used by regular cars because it's illegal to park a regular car in those spaces.
Yeah, we have no objection to reducing it to 9. They're going to be there a
It's
long
nothing you've
time.
done. You've done
Yeah.
what's required of you.
No, right, if you
You know what?
want us to remove 3, I guess.
Go ahead and advocate the DCA to change it. We'll be behind you.
I wish this would go away, but that's.
So,
aside from
yeah,
that.
we reduced to 9. So just to be clear, the pedestals come in pairs, like that one pedestal charges 2
You get
spaces.
2, right.
So one will
So
have
an
the
even
capability
number.
without a sign. I mean, it's just, we'll have 9 that are signed to meet the law.
And you have one handicap space, which also has the EV, which is good
Required.
just in case.
Yep.
But again, that's a difficult one to work through because of the requirements. I think those requirements should be less for an affordable senior type development like this, where I don't think the Tesla is going to be their car of choice. I'm just putting that on record. The handicap spaces, you talked about, they're not going to be designated, but potentially you could have more if you have more residents who have handicap needs. So I agree with that. Don't designate them because that would be the same problem with the EV spaces. You put too many of those and they can't park in them.
Yeah, so just to be
start
clear how
doing-
that would work. As you know, accessible spaces have the space itself and then the painted aisle. In this scenario, if there's a resident that wants that space or needs that space, it'll be assigned to them, but it's not going to be compliant for anything other than grading. We're not going to be able to remove spaces and put in extra paint. It'll just be available to them close to the door.
Okay, and then as for the, loading spaces, you do have a loading dock there for any
Well, I
regular
wouldn't call it a
routine-
dock, but a loading space, yes.
I heard that there's a kitchenette in the kitchen. Is there deliveries for food or is that just?
No,
people
that's
go out and
for
buy
use
their
by the
food?
residents. Yeah, we
Okay.
don't have food service or anything, no.
And as for the traffic and parking, you've given the testimony. I agree with the parking, the ITE demand, and we've done counts in our office as well, and they come to 1 or less is the demand. So I don't see a problem. I see more of a problem with that EV taking away from the ability to fill, the 60 physical spaces that are on site. So those are the comments I have.
Thank you.
I actually have a follow-up question for Andy that may help the board. And this has to do with the testimony, which I guess is a little bit changed now, that they're providing 60 spaces, but you were going to be able to get a 1-for-1 for up to 6, right? No.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
for 12. No, so now
Well,
you're going to have fewer. Yeah,
This is
okay.
clear as mud, but the way it works,
Yeah.
we get double credit for the space,
Right.
but the physical construction can't be less than 10, or it can't be more reduction than 10% of what's required. So at 60, we can build 54. That's the lowest we can physically have. But the space is counting double. In reality, when you do the numbers, it ends up being 70.
Okay.
So
okay.
even if there are 9 EV spaces, you still can only reduce it by 6.
Right, okay, so you still can get that full 6 in a reduction. So I guess the question I have for Andy and then probably to the board is that there was a design waiver raised in my letter of August 20th regarding the lack of landscaping within the parking area itself. And so because could avail themselves of this EV bonus and could provide 54 physical spaces, I guess my question to Andy is, would you recommend to the board that they stay at 60 if they're going to have 60 units? Or do you think that do you think it is reasonable for the board to reduce it to 54 in order to get more landscaping in the parking area?
I think as a traffic engineer, I'm going to say if they have the 3 handicap spaces, which are potential for use, they may not be used, and then the 9 EV spaces, which are potential for use and may not be used, I would, for this site, I would suggest that we keep the 60 if possible. Now, again, I understand the landscaping needs and the board is going to have to weigh that. But I would really like to see as many as possible because they're required to put the handicap spaces in. And those, I think, will be more used than the EV spaces, honestly, on the site.
Okay, so, obviously the board will then just have to grant a design waiver to the applicant if the board agrees that the 60 spaces are what the board would like to see. They just have to grant a design waiver for the landscaping, which is a much less stringent standard than for a variance. Just a couple other items from my letter. I had my comments beginning on page 5, referring to the C bulk variance. There is just that one variance for the impervious coverage, and I understand from Dave Hoder's testimony that he feels confident that the stormwater management can be accommodated or more than accommodated on site, right?
I agree.
Okay, which is, typically kind of the main driver of impervious coverage aside from bulk. The next question I had to do with the makeup of the residential units. And I will say, actually, there's a new provision in UHAC, the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, that requires that 5% of senior/special needs units have to be 2-bedroom, and the applicant is providing that. They could have prior to this recent legislation, they could have done all 1-bedrooms. But the question actually I have related to that, to the 2 bedrooms, is in your experience, in your other projects, I guess you probably haven't built that many under the new UHAC rules, but do you have school children if you have a 2-bedroom unit?
Well, I think that's probably a question for Mr. Del Duca, but I believe there are minimum age limitations. Now, that may not apply to the special needs unit, so I'll
Okay.
ask Joe to answer if he can.
No, we have no school-age children. Never have had one school-age child in any community we've ever built. And the way the rules are, in the senior communities, yeah, the way the rules are set up, I guess it's not absolutely impossible, but virtually impossible.
Okay, all right. Then the only question, actually, while you're still here, I think you said this, but I want to just get it on the record. Are 13% going to be very low?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's 8 units.
8 units.
That's
right.
rounded up.
Okay, thank you. And then, I have a whole bunch of comments, 4, 5, 6, and 9, having to do with the landscaping. And I think the applicant has provided testimony that this is preliminary site plan. They are under a very tight time frame. And so I would request, if the board is okay with that, that as a condition of any preliminary site plan approval, that the applicant continue to work with the board professionals to sort of improve the landscaping to the extent to the professional satisfaction, keeping in mind this is a 100% affordable project and there can't be any sort of unduly cost generative provisions.
Absolutely.
And we agree.
Okay. And I would also recommend a very similar condition for the architecture. Again, knowing that there are limits. This is a very, unique, 100% affordable, municipally sponsored project. We can't be too onerous in our requests, but that we would.
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay.
Because the town's going to just pay anything that goes over here.
Okay, all right, so, but anyway, there's a similar condition of approval that, working with the professionals, and the planning board in general to make some improvements, given, what the testimony was, which is understandable, that they had to get something very quickly done.
And going back to the landscaping, as you made an application to the Shade Tree Commission. Our Shade Tree Commission is an excellent group of individuals that takes this very seriously, and they have a prescribed list of plant material that that uses native New Jersey plants, drought-resistant plants, things along that line. And your plan, I know, will incorporate all of those because we just don't want white pines and arborvitaes in the backyard there. So you'll work with Liz on developing that landscape plan. So
I mean, I'm fine with that if they're okay.
And with the Shade Tree Commission.
Yes. Just so so I understand what the condition is, what is the condition relating to
the
this?
condition is that Shade Tree Commission provides plant material that's a recommendation for planting on all of our commercial properties. And we want you to, use plantings from those lists and incorporate that into your landscape design. If we could get some bigger caliber trees, that would be appreciative, and things along that line, so we can build the landscape up quickly rather.
Yeah, so the applicant agrees to work with the planner to improve upon the landscape plan as to quantity and quality and species, and we have no objection to complying with the Shade Tree Commission plant list. I haven't seen it. Jay may not have seen it. If there's some
It's
issue,
nothing exotic, believe me. So
if there's some issue, which I can't imagine, we'll resolve it with your planner. Worst case, we'll come back to the board of final and deal with it then. I can't imagine that'll happen.
And that is really the extent of my comments. So I'm done.
Okay, at this point in time, so we're all good, at least for and again, this is a preliminary approval tonight. It's not the final approval, because we've been talking about a dozen different things here that we need to, carry through and everything. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to the board for questions and comment, and we'll start with you, and then we'll just kind of work our way around the room here, if that's all right with you, if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. This is a building that has elevators in it. Do you intend to meet the type A requirement for all the units? The type A accessibility requirements? Also, it's a pretty large building. What construction type is it?
You have to step up to the microphone. You have to step up to the microphone, Arnie.
Does this meet the height and area requirements for the 5A building? I know. Okay, doesn't need an increase for frontage increase
No, we got the increase.
with the sprinkler. Very good. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Arnie.
I think I appreciate everybody's testimony, and it was really well done and very detailed, and I do truly appreciate that. I think my biggest concerns will continue to be I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around the parking and how that's all going to play out. You got 60 units and but you guys do this is, what you're doing, but parking bothers me. And I agree with all of Andrew's comments about, the access, and that's a fast road. We all come off of 130 and these are senior citizens. And I think we have to be really, really aware of how that's designed. I don't even know if the county would reduce the speed limit there to a certain extent. That's not going to help much, but you could at least make the effort. But I am concerned about the safety there.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. I similarly agree with Andrew on the access issues regarding the entrance and exit to South River Road. It would be nice if there were a left turn stall, but knowing that most traffic is not going to continue along South River Road towards 130 at that point, and they're actually going to make a right in towards the signal, and only folks going to the Dunkin' Donuts are going to continue down the road. Yeah, there isn't really much, but knowing that it opens to 2 lanes right at the point that we would like to have these folks exit, it kind of does provide an opportunity, if we could convince the county to do so, to add a left turn stall and push the split into 2 lanes further down the roadway past the entrance or past the exit of the age-restricted housing. That's all.
Just want to say thank you for, I think the very thorough presentation. I think improvement of the design from what was originally submitted. I appreciate that a lot. Mine are kind of general comments just for as you develop the site. I guess first I want to say is, I live across from the senior housing in Cranberry. It's a very nice senior housing complex. I would say 1/3 of the residents we see outside all the time. 2/3 I've never ever even met. They never come out. But they come out and they walk their dogs. They come out and they smoke and they sit on the bench. They walk to Cranberry Pizza. My wife and I go to Cranberry Pizza way too much, but I guess we're in the senior age, and you get tired cooking for yourself. So the point is, we really, for the success of the project, want this to be really nice senior housing for the town, for the residents, for you. We want this place to be full. No vacancies. We want people to live here. So really encouraging you to think about, if this was a place where you were to live, or your, mother, or your parents were to live, or grandparents, what is it like really living there and being able to, when you're inside an apartment, my parents are in 98 and they're 89 and they're in a condo, and they go stir crazy. They just can't, they look for any opportunity to get outside. Luckily, they have a large deck they can get out to in good weather. So I encourage you to think about that indoor, outdoor spaces as you develop this. I know budget is tight. I know the site is very tight. The entire backyard is a stormwater retention basin, but right now it's very linear. How can you develop that in terms of making better indoor, outdoor space off the community space with the landscaping? I think Liz is probably going to kill me on this one, but I'd rather see waivers for landscaping where it makes sense rather than just meeting the ordinance. So to me, having all that landscaping behind the retention basin doesn't make sense. You already have nice green space behind there. And by building that, you're making the backyard feel even smaller. You want that backyard, all that back green space to feel like it's part of this property. And people that have the 3rd floor, are on the 3rd floor and the 4th floor, have this beautiful view out to over all this green space. Take advantage of it. Does that allow you to push the building back a little bit and create the much needed buffer, or median strip between the parking? Right now, the front just came off of vacation, traveled for 2,000 miles and stayed in many hotels. This is very much like an extended stay hotel. Right now, it's still, the parking lot feels like it. The building does not. The front building facade is very nice, very welcoming. I think a place where seniors will really enjoy living. But the parking lot is just this huge blank parking lot with no parking, no streetscape landscaping, no building landscaping to soften this 4-story building, which is larger than the other buildings in the area. Luckily, it is set back. But I think to take that landscaping and move it around to where it makes sense is important. So if you can move the retention basin back and the building back and gain space that way, or if you change it to one-way traffic and you can go from a 60-foot wide drive lane to 55 feet, you gain 5 feet there, another 2.5 on the other side. You just gain 7.5 feet for that green strip. There's lots of non-cost, simple things that I think that you can do to take this to the next level, and that's what I'm asking you to look at. Just to go through my list, but that's the main gist of it. The stormwater retention basin, is there a way to shape it so it feels a little bit more natural? A rain garden, or part of it rain garden, or the landscaping around the rear patio that makes it feel more like a rain garden. You know, I just lots of little inexpensive tricks that can, change, how this looks and feels like a backyard and a garden rather than a big retention basin. I think I would love to see people are going to cross the street and go to the Dunkin' Donuts. They're not going to walk 500 feet, north to come back 500 feet to get to the restaurants or whatever. There's the Italian restaurant to the left that comes all the way up to this property. Just talk to those owners. Is it possible to put a sidewalk, a back sidewalk to the restaurant? Is there a way to talk to the town to put another crosswalk rather than investing in that one that's too far away, that's probably never used by anyone? Is there a way to invest, that money into a crosswalk which is closer that will get them to the Dunkin' Donuts and the other restaurants across the street? I just encourage you, go out there, walk the site, really get to know this site inside and out, and how people will use this community and fit into the community. Lighting, I think you already heard it, but the worst thing in a hotel is when you got that outdoor light shining in your unit all night long. So lower lighting, more fixtures, you get them all down to 12 feet. Needs to be safe, obviously. A warmer light, 3,000, 3,500 Kelvin, that feels more residential, not a stark daylight light that feels like a commercial building or a hotel. I think the facade design, I think to me, the southwest facade is more important because that's what you're really going to see, coming from Route 130. The north facade, you're going to see less, and it's got well buffered trees. It's got the hotel that probably has no better facade on that side. So, spending your money wisely, I fully understand. And though it's not really the purview of this board, but again, I would say the interiors, making really nice community space. Having elevators where the doors, where the ADA being of the door isn't like right across from a unit entry where they hear that constantly, just really kind of taking that interior common space core design to another level, really putting yourself living in that. And think about all of the bad hotels that you stayed in. And I'm saying that this isn't, I think the plans are good. I think there's a good design. I think you need to really look at all of the units, how they're adaptable and functional for cabinet space. It's a challenge. I know it's a challenge. It's such a small unit, but really think it out as though you're living there and you become in a wheelchair and how you're going to use the space. And this will be a successful project, I think, for both Cranberry and your group. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for a very, very detailed presentation, and I'm very sensitive to the time constraints that you're under. If anybody can understand that, it's us. I want to reiterate the north being the outbound. One thing I've learned on being on this board is I pay very special attention to my own behavior now. When I'm driving, when I'm parking, and I'm in a parking lot. It's crazy the things that I think about. But the behavior pulling out of that Dunkin' Donuts is to not even get into the northbound lane. I've seen people pull out and stay in the southbound lane and then go into that turn to go south on 130. And I've seen it consistently. So it just reiterates your point. If you watch that and observe that intersection, you will see people like, I'm pulling out of Dunkin', so I'm going south on 130, and they don't even pull into that lane. So it just reiterates exactly what you're suggesting, and I would use that as observational research when you're talking to the county. If you are going to remove EV spots, I would suggest that they're the spots that are closest to the building next to the accessible spots, because then you can reassign them or repurpose them, as you said. And that way the EV kind of stays on the side. And if they're not going to be used, why take up the spots that are closest to the building? So I would do the 6 furthest away EV spots and keep them, or however you do that.
I just want to note that there are some municipalities that move the EV spaces away from the building, because if there's a fire with EV spaces, and typically the ignition source starts where you're charging, if one and then the row of them go, it's right next to the building, it's easier to fight if it's away from the building. Just keeping that point in mind, and check with the Cranberry Fire Department to see their requirements.
What he said. I think the integration of a community room is absolutely critical to this project. As a daughter of somebody who is hearing, both audible and hearing and visually impaired, there's a sense of internal community that naturally forms in these buildings, and I'm sure that you've seen it. So I applaud the effort to keep it integrated there. They will do more activities together. They will be more prone to socialize together. They will be more prone to coordinate if they do go outside for activities together. So the integration of that community room being on site is critical. I appreciate that. We, at another project in town, thought about a connector from the Ingerman project to Bennett Court, and we negotiated the township with those two entities to create a connector, and we did it after the project. Any way that you can connect to the Italian restaurant or the next building over, which is the Mr. Subs, which is a sandwich shop, and they also serve breakfast. If there's something that you could work out with the neighbors of that property, if you do that intersection and crosswalk to the north, you're then coming back, and then you're asking these residents to go through that intersection, that turnstile to 130. There's no crosswalk there, which is an extremely dangerous intersection to be in a car, let alone as a pedestrian, and there's no sidewalk there. That sidewalk ends. So that scenario doesn't appeal to me, but some sort of connector to the south on the east side, I think would be interesting. You do have single family homes there, so extending the sidewalk down would probably be more difficult and costly, but if there's a connector on the backside of those properties, that would be interesting. And that's all I have. So no questions, just comments.
I have a few thoughts. No, you're good. Thank you. It's funny, I don't remember a time that we talked about a project like this and didn't mention salt and salt storage and and snow removal and like, oh, I kept waiting for something like that.
Well, that's why we have you.
No, not necessarily. I don't want to open up that can. I actually was wondering about, with regards to parking and the fact that we have this big, beautiful structure, how, did we not contemplate parking underneath the structure at all? And what does that do for the project?
Well, in simplest terms, it creates accessibility issues because you have to get accessibility needs to the building. It just adds a lot of cost. It becomes a different construction type, fire suppression goes up. It's just very, very costly to do it.
Okay, good answer. And being that this is how the parking lot is laid out, is there an opportunity to maybe utilize the space above for solar cells or anything like that? And is that a?
The answer is possibly. We've done it in quite a few communities that we have. The way it works is, the way the funding is provided, if you don't put it in the initial community, they don't want it in there. They want you to spend the money on the community. But we have a contingency. These things are, again, very, very tightly regulated. But we have contingency dollars. And when we have contingency dollars available, they don't go in our pocket. They need to be utilized. And the main thing we like to utilize before it is solar. And the solar that you can do, you can't provide solar. It's against the law to provide solar to the units themselves because it needs to be through the utility company. There's too much, I guess, opportunity for fraud or whatever it is. But you can do your parking lot lights and all your common areas can be with the solar. So oftentimes rooftop solar is sufficient to provide a good bit of that, a good bit of that common electricity. So it happens. It's one of those things that kind of happens organically as you go through the community. We're doing several as we speak, and we've done it in quite a few.
Okay. And I was just sort of imagining how if there were that solar canopy, how we could then create a canopy that would allow people to walk straight to the front of the building without having, in inclement weather or something.
Yeah, typically we do it on the rooftops. We have done it in parking lots as well. We're doing it right now in parking lots. Again, when you're doing it in the parking lots,
Yeah.
it impacts your site plan and the cars and moving around. Seniors have a tendency to bump into things. So it's not out of the question. It's something that we can certainly consider and we like to do. And that is our number one thing to do with contingency dollars is to provide solar.
That's good to know. And I think Lisa discussed a lot, and there was a lot of discussion about the Mr. Ferranda, your suggestion about the ingress, egress. I'm just making the comment that as we come down this road and we are driving very fast, how do you discourage people from making that first left into this unit?
Signage,
Into the outbound?
Yeah.
definitely signage, do not enter.
Just signage, is that sufficient?
For residents, they will see the signage at least once, twice through their times. It should be sufficient. If this were a commercial store, you might have people coming that don't recognize it and get in there, but residents will see the signage, and I think that is the best preventer.
They'll get used to their environment there.
Yeah.
And that's something we can discuss with the county and what they're looking for to make sure that that's an outbound only.
And I would not do this presentation justice if I didn't say thank you very much. It's been very clear to follow. I love the colors. I love the details. I mean, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. My turn. First, I would like to compliment my board. I work with some very talented people up here on the board and our professionals, and most of the questions I had written down tonight have already been answered. So I do have a couple questions. I do impress upon you some of Bill's comments as far as in the back of the building, if we can extend that back. And Liz, I don't know if we can do that legally and go right up to the property line with the detention basin with minimal shrubbery and give more green space behind the building and maybe get a little creative with the detention basin and make something look, turn something that's just a detention basin into something that's a little bit more, for lack of a better word, feng shui looking and build it so it's more of an appeasing type of thing if you're in the backyard there. Because you are right. I mean, there's people that are going to want to go out and they want to walk their dog or do whatever and sit out in the backyard on a nice day, and that would afford them to do that. There are no sidewalks in the front of this property, right? We're not putting sidewalks in at this point in
They
time?
exist already.
Are there sidewalks?
There are sidewalks. There is
Okay.
frontage sidewalk.
Okay. I agree with the comments about everything with the traffic going in and out. That's a tough spot there. It's not impossible, but the egress and ingress in and out of that property, obviously, you're going to have to get input from the county and try to work that out. And if there's anything we could do to soften that with the additional signage, like, coming off of Route 130, tell the county, because people fly off of the highway. And I've done it myself. I'm coming off the highway on the South River Road there. I'm driving highway speeds, and you decelerate a little bit, but actually you decelerate from the potholes in the road that are there. But I would say put some speed bumps in, but we're not allowed to do that on a county road. So, and I press upon you to try to look at those interior access points to the Italian Touch restaurant and some of those. That's a very good suggestion. If we can figure that out somehow and get people walking interior to the properties versus exterior. And on a final note, I know we talked about this at the beginning. I know there's a lot of concern about demolishing the homes that are on the property currently. I had thought that there would be a way to potentially, utilize those homes into the plan or repurpose them somehow, but in looking at this now, I know you did your due diligence in looking at this and seeing how you could try to get it. I don't see how it could be done. I'm not seeing how this can be done with incorporating those buildings in there. It just doesn't seem possible right now. There is a comment I want to bring up, and this is something, Joe, if you'd like to come back up to the mic. And this is something for just a general comment in the future for some of your projects and maybe your next, the next project we potentially do together. With respect to putting in childcare into your facilities. I mean, with this particular facility, you have a lot of amenities that I did not even think were going to be in the building there, which is great. It actually adds to the user friendliness of the building. But in other facilities that you have or stuff in the future, you might want to consider some kind of childcare facilities located within the affordable housing units, because I think, as we heard last week in Trenton, there was a woman who I'd met, Winfred Smith Jenkins, and she made a presentation about, and I think it was an excellent idea, about incorporating daycare into affordable housing facilities if possible, especially larger scale ones. It really makes a difference. And she was advocating with the state that we get some kind of housing credit for doing that, which I would advocate with some of our state representatives that they should push that. So something food for thought for you in the future. I'm publicly saying it now. So,
And I appreciate those comments. It's actually a pretty complicated issue, but it is one that the agency is looking at, because probably 6 months ago, the director reached out to us and asked us to do some studies and feasibility work on that exact issue. So I know it's an important issue to them. There's licensing issues.
right.
There's the issue of scale. If you have a 60-unit family community, you don't necessarily have, we average 0.8 school-age children. So how many kids do you have that need daycare? It's not a huge number.
Right.
So those kinds of issues, and of course, there's always cost.
Right.
So they're all issues that need to be wrestled with. But the need for it and the problem of not having it is undeniable.
Right. So that's, I mean, if you have, obviously smaller units might be tough, but if you have a larger unit, like, some of the balance of the projects we have here in town, it's something to maybe potentially think about in the future. So,
Yeah, they're changing the rules on allowing people in small areas. It's actually a great job for
Right.
a mom who lives in a community like ours to have and take care of other children in the community. So they're the kinds of things that are being worked on. I suspect that kind of guidance will come out. But as you can also expect, those rules will be, they will be very specific and strict, obviously for the safety of the children.
right. And while you're up here, I'm going to go back to Iman's burning question about salt storage and maintenance. So obviously you do all the maintenance on the site, snow removal and everything. So there's really no need to store large quantities of salt or anything on the site other than
No.
maybe bag salt for the sidewalks and
Right, we
things.
do all that. Our folks will do that kind of stuff. But typically we have outside contractors that come in and do the major. So we don't have the equipment there where we
Right.
clean it all ourselves. But, snow is the bugaboo of all apartment developers.
Now you have
can't
no,
control the costs but we have all that equipment. And I couldn't tell you honestly exactly what we have in every community and don't, but I know we have enough there to take care of immediate issues. And we always have contractors who show up very quickly.
now I noticed on the site, I didn't see on the plan, and maybe I overlooked it, emergency generation to at least run the elevators and things like that for.
Yes, we have all that.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all the questions I have right now, and I share the sentiments of my board members. I found this to be a very good presentation, very thorough and everything. But at this point in time, I'm going to open for public comment on this application. So as you come forward to make public comment, please state your name and address, and please sign in on the sheet up here. So,
Do you want me to vacate the seat?
yeah, if you would vacate that
absolutely.
seat for a minute, I'd appreciate that. And we're timing this at 3 minutes for public comment.
And I'm going to swear the members of the public who are going to speak in. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or
You could do
affirm the
that.
testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
So sworn or affirm, please state your full name, spell your last name.
Jennifer Suttmeyer, Suttmeier, 14 Scottsdale Court.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I want you to just pull the mic back a
Closer?
little.
We can.
Okay.
For those listening at home.
All right, so good evening. My name is Jennifer Suttmeyer. I'm the chair of the Cranberry Historic Preservation Commission. And the commission spent considerable time reviewing and discussing the site plan in our meeting last week. For your convenience, I'd like to summarize some of the key points that we discussed. First and foremost, this property contains a historically significant structure known as the Roger G. Isham House, constructed in 1853. It is a strong example of mid-19th century vernacular residential architecture with later 19th century Victorian additions, including a number of details, including a glazed paneled double door with single light transom, louvered blinds, arch window openings, a hip roof stoop porch, decorative barge board. I can come through here. It's a lot of details. I have a report I can give to all of you that came from the state. It has a high degree of integrity. It was listed as eligible for the National Register of Historic Places under Criterion C in the early 80s, we believe. And this is part of Cranberry's architectural history and what makes Cranberry very special. Just demolishing this building is irreplaceable. There are not many buildings like this left in our town. In my opinion, the responsible approach is to preserve this property, not simply demolish it because it wasn't designated locally. It has an architectural and historical significance. Again, the State Historic Preservation Office determined this as eligible. Cranberry never went forward with a local designation for a number of reasons, including resources, prioritizing our historic district, the requirement of having multiple houses all next to each other and making it into a district. This was an individual property, very difficult, would have required a lot of resources. So it was never made, on the national list or anything like that. That doesn't mean it's not important. And we don't believe that preserving this structure and providing housing are mutually exclusive. We think that both of these goals can be achieved. And so we are here to urge the developer and the board to rework the plans, please. Please rework them in a way that retains this historically significant house. Again, I'm referring to the structure, the Victorian structure that's in the front. The other structures are not part of this oversight. It's concerning that the plan now has that where the house was is now considered a parking lot. It's difficult to understand how parking is more important than history. And we think that you guys can find a way. I've heard testimony earlier this evening where they said there's no way to do it. I still don't believe it. So please look at some adaptive reuse. There are grants that can be achieved. There are organizations such as Cranberry Housing Associates that can help. And we believe you guys can save this house. So thank you.
Thank you. Please sign in.
Okay.
You can raise your right hand to swear or affirm that testimony about to give will be the truth.
I do.
so sworn or affirmed. Please state your full name, spell your last name.
Thank you. My name is Gerard Geyer. I live at 5 Applegate Court in Cranberry. I'm also a member of the Historic Preservation Commission and a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey and many other jurisdictions around the country. With all due respect, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that it is impossible to save this house. I've done a sketch, which I'm happy to share. It's not a detailed sketch at this point, but I do believe that the house could be preserved by reconfiguring the building on the site into an L-shaped building instead of a straight building across the back. It could be 2 wings, one going across the northern boundary and then L-shape L-ing over on the eastern side. If the building was pushed all the way to the side yard and rear yard setbacks, it would give it enough space at its current width, the building's current width, to fit between the existing house and the side yard setback. And I believe also that the existing house could then be used for many of the community facilities that are currently planned to be put in the new building, which would actually save square footage, and potentially save construction costs for the developer. Of course, the parking would have to be completely reconfigured, but my rough layout got at least 60, if not more, parking spaces in that configuration. It's already been talked about in terms of the rear yard and the rainwater detention. That would obviously have to be reconfigured, but I think it can be done. And also, I think there could be other things done to mitigate rainwater runoff, such as bioswales, which are often used these days to mitigate runoff, as well as pervious paving, not necessarily for the entire parking lot, but some of the paving could be made pervious so that the water would not actually run off. It would be absorbed into the surface before it ran off. So I would say that there are ways to do this. It requires a little bit of innovation and creativity, and it does not change the basic footprint of the building, other than the fact that it's an L shape. But we see next door there's a hotel that has 2 L shapes, so we know we can do double-loaded corridors and have units on both sides in that kind of a configuration. Again, I would ask that the board reconsider this and ask the developer to think about new ways to approach this. And I'm happy to work with them as part of the Historic Preservation Commission and try to discover a better way to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind leaving that with our engineer, please? Thank you.
Very much.
Would anybody else like to come up and talk? Okay, hearing no other comments from the public, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting. Now, Jerry, are we going to read back what, now, could you give us a quick synopsis of the conditions for the approval tonight and explain preliminary versus final?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. And I might say just as predicate, as Mr. Del Duca pointed out, if low-income housing tax credit financing is to be secured, the deadline is Tuesday. So it's essential from that point of view, and I believe the municipality's point of view, for site plan approval, preliminary site plan approval to be granted tonight. If there is a complete redoing of the plan, then it cannot be granted tonight. And I think that it exposes the township to other developers coming in and saying, you have a housing element fair share plan. Basically, you've just turned down an application to approve one of the projects in the housing element and fair share plan. And we have an alternative site, which would always be in less density occupied areas, because that's where the land is cheapest, that we're willing to build. And it's an invitation, in my mind, to litigation. So I just say that. Now, I can certainly walk through the conditions. And for preliminary, it's just that it's expected during when somebody comes back in for final, that they'll have more, they'll have pinned down all the points, the conditions of preliminary. Here, there's, given the time frame that was created by the approval of the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan at the end of June, there's a lot of changes that I think will be made, which is appropriate when they come in for final. In terms of the conditions, the applicant has indicated that they'll work with the staff, including the consultants, and the Affordable Housing Committee in terms of modifications and improvements to the plan. There'll be much further consideration of landscaping and what can be done to improve the landscaping, including the possibility, as the chair indicated, or raised a question about, of moving the detention basin back, and including possibly reducing the number of parking spaces to create more parking, more trees in the parking area. And again, in terms of the landscaping, the applicant will work with the staff. They'll utilize the list of acceptable plantings from the Shade Tree Commission, and try to work out something which enhances the landscaping. It's the same as Liz indicated, should be done with respect to the parking. No, I'm sorry, with respect to the architecture, working with the staff, including that is the consultants, on in seeing what improvements could be made to the architecture. One of the considerations that will be taken, they'll be considering, particularly in terms of landscaping, is reducing the number of parking spaces. And if that's done, moving the EV spaces that are closest to the building away from the building. The light poles are going to be reduced from 20 feet to 18 feet. As was indicated earlier, even lower might be appropriate. That could certainly be a subject of discussion. And in terms of the landscaping, a whole number of items, trees around the basin, possibly more landscaping in the parking area, more buffering, moving the detention basin back, as I indicated a moment ago. In terms of runoff, more information is necessary with respect to where the flow is going to go to make sure it doesn't go into another property. Soil testing will be done. And with that soil testing, they'll update the basin if necessary, which now is a sandy bottom and would drain within 72 hours. They'll do a template for trash. They've done a template for trash trucks. They'll do the same kind of turning movement analysis for fire trucks, and they'll get the information from the fire department, and they'll go to the fire department for whatever approvals they need from the fire department. And then, obviously, the affordable development will be deed restricted in terms of the ingress and egress. This is the north ingress will be exit only, and the south will be ingress only, although it was indicated that they could consider a right turn out on the south ingress.
Just a suggestion, make that a condition of the county approval because it's really under
Right.
county
Oh, yeah,
jurisdiction.
and I was going to get to that. That all of this relating to the county road, it's going to be subject to approval by the county, which has the jurisdiction over that. Be a phase 1 EIS that'll be submitted. They'll consider and go to the county with a left turn lane in. That's it from my notes. You want me to go through what's in the reports?
As far as the waivers go, yeah, why don't we,
Oh, just for the waivers, right?
yeah.
Well, at this point, there are 3 submission waivers, which are, I guess, actually, the road and utility underground sections, the environmental impact statement, although they're going to actually do the phase 1 EIS, earthwork calculations, and they're going to do percolation tests also. And then they'll reduce, as per the RSIS, the top course and the base course from 2 inches and 4 inches to 1.5 inches and 3 inches, if they determine, given what they find out from the perk tests, that the 1.5 inches and the 3 inches will sustain the amount of development on the surface. Then there'll be the one design waiver, which is the one from the landscaping in the parking. Although, even if that's granted, that doesn't mean as part of the ongoing development of the design that they won't have landscaping in the parking area, and they might even try to comply with the ordinance. The fact that you got a waiver doesn't mean that you have to use it. Then I could go over the individual items.
No, I think we're
So
good.
is that all right? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify 1 or 2 things?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller, for such a thorough job reviewing your conditions. I align with those conditions. Just a point of clarification or 2. As far as the submission waivers, there were 4 items, 41, 53, 59, and 60 that we're asking for. 59 is the EIS. We'll submit a phase
Right.
1 in lieu of an EIS.
Okay, that one
Right.
should be acceptable.
That's what's proposed anyway, subject to
Right.
the board's approval. We will submit soil tests that may not necessarily comply with checklist item 41, but that will be adequate to properly design the stormwater. We'll comply with the comments in the 3 review letters discussed tonight, other than as clarified on 1 or 2 items on the record tonight. We certainly understand that we'll have to comply with the remainder of those comments. That the approval would include not only preliminary site plan, but also the variance for impervious coverage, 40% where 50% is required, and a waiver to allow 4% landscape area where 10% is required under section 43B2D of the ordinance, although we'll work with your planner to see if we can improve upon that. But asking for that design waiver. I think that was all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of the checklist waivers, I think you still have to approve the waivers for 31, 41, 53, 59, and 60, because they're not providing them at preliminary. They might provide 2 of them at final, or 3 of them at final.
I agree.
And so for today, this resolution, I think you got to put them in there.
Yep.
Does everybody understand that?
Hey, Wayne.
Yes.
I did hear Gerald state that stormwater would not flow out of the retention ditch into other properties. That's exactly what it's going to do out of the emergency outlet. What they're going to check is that it's not flowing towards structures
Right.
or,
Correct.
cause damage. Right.
But you're right, water flows downhill and it's going in that direction, and that's not going to change. But I think the intent of the comment was to make sure that it's not creating an adverse condition for a downstream property.
The drainage rights of the people that are downstream.
Right. Thanks.
Any other questions from board members or our professionals? Okay, I am going to call a vote on the plan as submitted. So with all of the items listed,
The submission waivers, the
Yeah.
design waiver, and the conditions.
and with the understanding that the applicant will work with the Affordable Housing Subcommittee that consists of, from the Planning Board of Bill and myself, and from the Township Committee, Iman and Lisa. Okay? So with that in mind, I would like to have somebody make a motion,
So moved.
like a second.
Second.
Okay.
All right, roll call for PB 409-25. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Albadawi?
Yes.
Mr. Giddings?
Yes.
Ms. Knierim?
Yes.
Mr. Mildenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Muselli?
Yes.
Mr. Polk?
Yes.
And Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Thank you, motion passed.
Thank you,
you
everyone.
all.
I want to thank you.
Thank you very much for your indulgence and your consideration. Thank you.
Yes, at this point in time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Meeting closed.